Welcome to Self-Perfected.
Go.
Turn off my dehumidifier.
Ooh, baby.
We're
Let's
live,
go.
guys.
Hey, come in hot.
Yes. Yes, yes,
Hey.
yes.
All right.
Oh, we actually are recording.
Yeah.
Cameron was just telling us his origins in Portland, Oregon, where he found himself.
Where he was
You
the,
guys know
the
that?
leader.
I was born again of the cruciform.
Yeah,
Of the
you know how
Oh,
you know
jeez.
how you know how Antifa is head based, headquarters there.
Head
Let me
base?
ask you a question, guys. Was
Do
there
you think it's a
Antifa?
coincidence?
Was there
Head base?
Antifa before I lived there?
No, but was there
Was there
after
Antifa
you
after?
after
Yes. You're the
Guys.
founding member of
I
Antifa
might be.
in
I
Portland.
might be
Wow.
the originator of Antifa.
Wow.
Wow. I
Incredible.
didn't know. I didn't know that's who we had amongst us.
Can I show the quick book tour for everybody?
Yeah, no,
Yeah,
please do.
yeah.
That was
I'll try to
walk
speed it up like before.
that
You
was
inspired
fantastic.
me to look at local bookstores that I have, and
So
we
I was
have
just
this.
showing them before we started, like when I lived in Portland, Katie and I, this is where, like, before I started studying Destiny, anything, I would just go here pretty much every day, for like months and just read in the coffee shop. I would go get books and read them. Sometimes I would buy them and I'd bring them back. I'll just start playing it. And I'd bring them back and resell them.
Can you
Huh?
put yourself in the corner of this? Can you? I want to see.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
We're gonna walk through.
Yeah. That's my favorite. There we go.
This is
there
when Cameron
we
was
go.
searching.
All right, here we go, guys.
Yeah,
I'll
so
take you on
we're taking a walk.
Take you into my world.
Yeah, with Cameron. Yay.
Can you
Cameron,
see
can
me?
you
I can't see myself.
Can you
No,
put on
you're
your
in the bottom right
Antifa
corner.
uniform? Can you put on your Antifa uniform too for this? Just so
I'm
we
in the
get
bottom
full
right.
picture.
Yeah, you're in the bottom
So if
right.
I go like that, I'm like pointing up to the.
You're
am I reversed?
pointing. No,
Yeah,
you're
reverse.
It's
pointing-
reversed. It's
Yeah,
reversed.
Hey, that guy on the street.
Yeah. So where
So
are we
here's where I
walking
used
Cam?
to stop and wait for the bus.
Oh, okay. All
I think
right.
we're walking north, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. See that little hill in the background? I used to live way up there for a bit, and like this,
Okay.
like it was this
And that-
mansion.
And then...
No, seriously, like a literal mansion, but it was like divided up into like individual like apartments, basically.
into
hilarious.
coffins.
No, like they were nice. It was nice. Like I don't know. I lived with my mom at that time,
Yeah.
and she always found the good shit. So okay, so I'll just speed up. I don't know why. I never went in this entrance, by the way, guys. Don't go in this entrance. This entrance sucks. Like always go in the back, other side by the coffee shop. Way better
Okay.
entrance. So just a pro tip, for like locals, don't go in this. This is the shitty entrance. This is like the fucking yuppie entrance. Okay.
Oh, okay.
It's like the
Plebeians,
corporate. This is like the
plebeians.
corporate side of Powell's. Okay.
Ah,
So this is just one room called the Orange Room. Now we're going into the Rose Room. And we're still kind of in like the checkout area, so it's not like the good shit, although we're starting to get some good shit here.
Okay.
And I don't remember what's in what. It's been a long, long time. It's been like I don't even know.
This is just massive. Like this.
Katie
looks
and I
like
did our honeymoon in Portland.
in this library.
2012. Yeah. We went to Powell's a lot, right?
This is where we did our
Every day.
honeymoon, right here.
Actually, when we did our honeymoon, we went to parts of Portland I never even went to when I lived there.
Oh, really?
So it's a small city, but it's big. There's like different sections, and they have different like vibes and different things. It's a pretty cool place, except for the Antifa. Sorry, guys, my bad.
wow. Talking shit about your own kind.
Yeah,
Look at.
I
Could
left-
you pause
I left
there?
right
Could
before
you
the
just
tr-
go back real quick and
yeah.
pause?
So those are called stairs. All right. So
like just that sign right there. Yeah.
what?
Okay, that one right there. How many?
Oh yeah.
rooms
Okay, I'll stop it here.
Are just like this?
So yeah, right. There's a bunch. Gold room. Oh yeah. I mean, I could tell you in each room the epiphanies that I had, like, and why.
What
So-
epiphany did you have on walking up the staircase? What were we? What
That's
was
where
going through
that's where I
Cameron's mind?
realized I was fully Christ conscious.
Oh, okay.
Hey, nice, Cameron. That's why
Right?
you started Antifa.
Here's about where
Uh oh.
here.
We lost you for a second.
Yeah, we
there.
lost you when you're sharing
Oh.
your
You're back.
insight.
I was saying that I graduated from nihilism like about a few meters back.
Okay, all right.
Wait, what was that? I don't know. I don't even know what this section is. It's the red room. I really feel like the metaphysics is in the red room, but there's not just one thing in each room. and they're not necessarily even related. But I feel like this is where the metaphysics. But like, if you look, like, I'll show you an example. See, all of this, what you're seeing right here, would be all still within like one genre or like something. It'd be like parapsychology would be this whole section right here,
Wow.
or something
Yeah.
like that.
That's
Or that'd be
crazy.
like one whole block would just be like Jung's books.
Wow.
It just goes on and on in different rooms, and lots of people wearing masks. So I'm glad I don't live there anymore.
Jeez. And this was in 2008. They're all wearing masks.
And what's going on up here?
You'd think they would have that Thomas Cohen book, the
There's more
Virus
up
Myth or
here.
whatever.
What is this up here?
Nobody's read it. It's just hidden amongst all these other books.
The one that explains what a virus is.
Robot takeover. Look, guys, they have a whole literal
Robot
section on
takeover?
Wow,
robot
robot
takeover.
takeover. That's
Yeah.
so cool.
Damn.
I
Damn.
honestly don't recognize this part. I don't know what this is. No, that's where this must be where the metaphysics is. I can't remember.
Every room that we go into.
I
Yeah,
just
that
I
part.
spent a
This is
lot
the
of time in
metaphysics.
that section, so I'm trying to remember where it was, but quick study. So this is like reference stuff, I
Can you
guess.
point to
Well-
the? Can you point to the shelf here?
What did
The
you
other side.
what did you realize over here, Cameron? What did you realize in this section?
This is where I realized, let's see, the system is out to get you. Here's where I realized I could remote view right there.
Oh, nice, nice.
And that's what we're doing right now.
This must be like some like rare books and shit. I don't really recognize this floor. I don't really remember if I spent a lot of time there because there'd be like certain sections
I
I'd
think
spend
we
a
have
lot
to go
of time
back.
on.
I think we have to go back to a special.
But I mean, look,
podcast
they're,
here.
they're not even covering their own tracks.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they're
yeah.
still just wandering around. They're back in the red room, I guess, a little bit, and they're back in orange, and they went back out. Okay, so I guess they just went back.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a dog. I remember petting that dog one time, and yeah.
Do you remember his name?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So
I can't say it though.
Okay. I've
don't
been
wanna
going
dox
through,
him.
I've been going through that list you made, Cameron, of all those sci-fi books. 'Cause,
Yeah.
Like I finished Accelerando. I'm almost done.
Well, no,
with
hold on. You're
that.
supposed to read the books, not just read the list, Mitch. I just want to clarify that for everybody, just in case they misunderstood you. Like he means like reading the books on there, not just reading the list itself.
Yes. Yes.
He's like, you're like, I've been doing that list in TT, like that you said. I'm like, no.
Yeah, exactly. You got to do the list. Yeah. So Accelerando was fucking hilarious and very expansive. Like I'm really seeing the value now of reading the sci-fi. Like 30 minutes at night before I go to bed. But like, damn,
Dude, you get
Okay.
30 minutes in before you go to bed?
sometimes
See, this is why you have to have a high reading speed because you only get 30 minutes max reading before you are fucking asleep. This
You're
is for me.
lucky,
Like,
yeah. Well,
Like-
because Aristotle has probably 200 books in his little room here. It's epic. We've got a whole system for getting them. And this kid will literally like power read. He will grab like 6 books. He'll sit next to you and he'll just be like ready to go. He'll even open. I took one yesterday. I got the book How to Lie with Statistics because Bill Gates recommended it. And so yeah, he was literally sitting there getting ready for me to change his diaper, and he was just like flipping through it, just like normal. Like, this is so cool. So anyway, though, yeah, I'm glad I have a high reading speed because I'm working through that list, and the Accelerando, for example, was like one of the most eye-opening things. How it's just so nonchalant. They're giving these like vocabulary terms. They talked about this panopticon dust that's like everywhere. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, that is the most like, and then like, yeah, and then they're hanging out in this room, and in the out of the utility fog, they morphed this like, couch. I'm like, what the fuck is utility fog? And I was like, oh, I have high vocabulary. I can put it together. I'm like, God damn, that's so cool. Like, there'll be these little one-liners that like I will never forget that.
Yeah.
So cool.
It's interesting because I only recently learned the word panopticon, and I was like, what is that?
I think
And
from Whitney
then
Webb or whatever.
yeah,
That's
Whitney
what-
Webb
I put
loves
that
talking
straight
about
through TT.
panopticon. The panopticon. I'm like, Whitney, slow down.
I remember learning about that in more detail when I was watching some video a while back about how schools are designed and how
Oh.
prisons are designed and
Yeah.
like all that, right? So
Yeah.
Makes
I can
sense.
see that. No, definitely. But,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Okay, what is the obsession with panopticon? It's like this because that's been around. If you actually really consider it, that's been around for ages, like literally millennia,
literal ages. Yeah.
you know, and like um it's even the concept of God is like he's always watching, you know, and having this idea of you're always being watched changes your character, changes the way
Dude,
that
I
you
can
act.
remember that as a kid. I like somehow accepted the belief. I think it's probably when I was like 5 or something. Where I'm like, wow, all of my dead relatives, everyone who's in heaven can watch what I'm doing right now. So I'm always like second guessing myself, as a kid. You're like, oh, God's watching, and I'm like, I remember the first time I swore. I was like in my garage, and I said asshole out loud because I was like, I want to say it just to see what happens. And I said it, and I was like, oh, I'm just like freaking out. I'm like, I'm gonna
Like
go to
the world's gonna
hell.
come down around you or
Yeah,
something.
like my mom's gonna know, my dad's gonna know, like everybody's gonna know because I said it. And I remember I was alone in the garage. I made sure no one could hear me. And it's but it's like, what the fuck? Like,
I
how
remember
was I thinking
sending
that as a kid?
I remember sending this
How was I reading
comic
these books?
to Cam, and it was I don't know if you remember this, Cam, but it was a long time ago. I sent this comic, and it was like this. The comic was a kid was like masturbating in his room, and then he's like, "Jesus, are you watching?" Like, but it like,
Jesus is like, can you hurry up?
yeah, right. Like it's like the kid was like the joke I think was that the kid was like getting off to like being
Oh
watched,
yeah, yeah,
like it's an exhibition, you know, like.
yeah, 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 yeah. That's funny.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
So
I
okay,
mean,
okay. But back to I need to really understand this, right? I have this list. There's so many books you could read. That's part of the fun of it, right? Is you're like, oh, what am I gonna read next? And I got I got one of the Ian Banks Culture Series ones because I was
Hmm.
like just kind of looking at that. I was like, okay, that
Which
seems.
one?
We got I think State of the Art. I found it at Barnes and Noble. I haven't opened it yet, but Aristotle was just going through some books I got, and he brought it over to Jess and
Yeah.
wanted her to start reading it, and she started reading it, and 3 pages in, Jess like, oh, you're gonna love this. She's like,
Yeah.
you. I'm like, oh man, okay,
oh
yeah,
wow,
that
look
one.
at
Total coincidence. Like literally
that.
just total
Yeah,
coincidence. I don't know why
Yeah.
that's sitting there.
I'm a panopticon.
Yeah. Yeah. The first one I read of that one was damn, which one was it called?
Player
The
of
second
Games.
one I read was Player of Games.
Consider Phlebas. Those are the ones I
Yes,
know.
consider Phlebas. Yeah, yeah,
I had to watch a YouTube video because I was like, do you really read all 9 in a row? Because like, okay, my even the reason I
I
brought
don't
it
think
up
it
was
really matters. Some people
that's what they
say
said.
like there's things referenced, but it's like very minor. It's not like a story that actually that's not true. Consider Phlebas. Man, I feel like there's one that's like sort of continues something, but it's only as like a reference to it. But anyways, yeah.
Yeah, but I remember I think actually Katie posted it on one of these comments. She said it was like Elon Musk made a quote that uh the culture series is the closest to where society's headed. So I'm like, I don't even know what that means. So I
Well,
watched a little YouTube
that's why I started
explaining it.
reading them was from
Yeah.
that Zuby interview
Yeah.
because
Oh,
he
okay. I
makes
didn't
this
watch the Zuby
comment
one.
like yeah he just makes this like it's kind of like an offhand thing. It wasn't even like do you know what I'm talking about, Drake?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
don't know
yeah.
if you saw that
He also
part, but
made a tweet about it though.
oh really? Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
Elon
back
also
when
made
they
a
did the
tweet.
Zuby interview, they were talking about Neuralink and stuff, and he was like, he just made this comment of like, it's the best depiction of like a positive version of humanity's future with technology and stuff. So I was like, I want to know why he's thinking what he's thinking, So that's what I
Right.
started reading.
Right.
So
There's a lot of people in the tech sphere who are reading the Culture series or who have read it, and
yeah.
Yeah, like
it's
I watched Mark Zuckerberg had a post of like what he's reading too, and that was the first time I ever heard of it. It was like
Oh, he was talking about it.
yeah, this was like a year ago.
I saw some Google exec. I think one of the Deep Mind guys.
Mhm.
I think the guy who went on to create some other thing. I can't remember what it was, but I think he mentioned it too, like in a very similar way to Elon did. It's kind of weird that they're impulsing
Mm,
it, but
Yeah.
yeah, I was like,
yeah.
hey, let me start
But
working
I've
through it.
read I think at least 3 of them, if not 4. So the problem was I was reading Hyperion, then I started reading the Culture series,
Did
and
you
then
finish Hyperion?
well, I read
So,
Hyperion.
and
Okay,
That's the
then the
first
fall of
one.
Hyperion.
No, I read Hyperion, and
Yeah.
then I started reading the Culture stuff, and
Okay.
then um and then I got Katie to start reading the culture stuff. She finished all the Hyperion series, and then she kept telling me, "Gotta read it, gotta read the next one, gotta read the next one." And so, I think when we went to Self Perfected event, then or no, it wasn't been that because I would have been further along. But regardless, I was like, at some point, I had it on my bookshelf or my dresser of like, I'm gonna get to this. I'm gonna get to it. It was always there. So I took a break from the culture series, started reading Fall of Hyperion. Now I'm on Endymion, but the reason I was saying that is because I've read at least 3, maybe 4 culture series books. Katie's read a lot more of them than I have. So I know her perspective too. And I'm like, where's the actual positive part that Elon Musk is talking about? Like,
Uh,
there's a lot of positive stuff that doesn't, but I think if you actually read it, it doesn't end up really being positive. So I'm just like,
hmm,
I don't know. It's very weird. I don't read any of these books and go like, wow, what an amazing future we could create.
yeah,
It
interesting.
doesn't, it'd be like reading Hyperion or
Uh,
Fall of Hyperion and being like, yeah, we should definitely have these Farcasters and this stuff. It's like, did you
ah,
finish the, you know what I mean?
yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so it's like that where you're like,
Did you read
it
all the
seems like a
books?
good idea. So I just
Yeah.
don't see the points where, and then, and she was even saying kind of like there's later in the books and culture series, which I haven't gotten to yet, the idea of uploading yourself, those kind of things. But even there, it seems like it's kind of still portrayed as a negative. So it's just weird that he's taking things that are not seemingly positive and then
Yeah.
going like, yeah, we should create that. I'm like,
Okay.
did you
See,
read it the same way I read it?
this is the necessity for high processing ability, and especially like I was watching that interview with Candace and Andrew Tate, right? And Andrew Tate makes this point of like, you know, if you look at the culture of the US versus like the cultures of other countries, in the US, it's like what ties people together? There's not much other than like this idea of like we have freedom and the idea that you can make a lot of money. And people are starting to realize like, well, they're not making like the average person's not making a lot of money. And so they're like, wait a minute.
And
What
you really don't have a lot of freedom when you
exactly?
look at all of the,
And that was the point that he was making is like the freedom thing is like actually you look at other countries, you don't have much more freedom than those other countries, except for they put the freaks to the front, is the way that he said it. Like where, oh yeah, this guy could chop his dick off, so like that means we have freedom. You can't do that in
yeah,
Russia.
I
It's
would
like,
definitely say though, like here, you could say something negative against Islam,
yeah,
and you can't do that in another country. So, is there degrees of it? Sure,
yeah,
but
yeah,
when you really look at it, really, you don't actually have real freedom. But that doesn't
right.
mean, oh well, we should just let America collapse and go live in some other and have some other thing. No,
Yeah, yeah.
It's like it's do or die right now.
but
What
to
I was
defend it as it is, like it should not get better.
right.
Because
Yeah.
well, you want to go live over there? It's like no, but
But
why can't we make it better here?
the point that I was making with that is that okay, so yeah, there I see what he's saying as far as like we don't really have a culture that ties people together. And so um
That's where we
but
come in.
but yeah, obviously, right? But also if you're able to read and like we're able to all share like these same books, we can make the same references because he makes the point of like, he makes this point that I thought was kind of stupid, but there is, I see what he's saying about it. Is like back in the days, everyone would watch the same television show. You'd watch the same episode of whatever show, and then you'd all be talking about it the next day, right?
Right.
Which I was like, yeah, but that's kind of
Destiny
bullshit.
Book Club, sci-fi.
But that is it. Everyone is thinking about the same things,
Right,
right?
right. And
Yeah.
so I see the importance of that, and so that's why we have a book club. We have, all the things that we're talking about, but it's also within the context of, hey, but we're here to study this information and share amongst ourselves and each other, so that we can actually do what's best. We can actually, hey, we can use that, like, or use the analogy of that, or tell that story of that, so that we can move past this and avoid that, and actually grow, which no one else is doing. And I wanted to bring up this point.
Oh,
What were you
sorry.
gonna say? What were you gonna say, Mitch?
Well, I was just gonna say, I think too, people have like, people got to forgive themselves on their relationship to reading and learning. At least for myself, right? I used to use it as a big fucking distraction. I had phases of my life too where I would find, bookstores or things and I would go just like crazy. Like I literally took a picture. This was the week before I went to that original Gin event and I found you guys. Because I would go to the library and I would max out my book card because you could get like 42 books from the library before they would stop you from getting books. I remember I took a picture because I was like, I had a guy come up to me. He's like, "Are you like an MBA program?" I'm like, "No, man. I'm just trying to fucking figure it out." And I had that, and because I would just like sit there, I would like read the book, I would hunt through it, and I would like take notes into my journal. And that was like my process. And I was literally like, how can we engineer heaven on earth? And I'm like, I don't fucking know. And I'm like going through like Kevin Trudeau's newsletter stuff. I'm like going through as much stuff as I could to try and change myself. And then, shout out, this is now 5 years ago, was when I found TT. I then finally got Technotude, and then I was like, oh shit, let me go get all those books and then now actually process all this. But my point I want to bring up is I think many people in this community have used reading, YouTube, podcasts, etc., as escapism. Whereas when you're actually effective and you can process information, you can use it to level up, act differently, and get a different, better result. But you got to let that go because otherwise, yeah, you could hear this and be like, oh, sci-fi, great. I need to go read now 20 sci-fi books before I feel confident to go talk to someone. Versus like
Well,
just
it's like,
integrate it
yeah,
into your day,
if you're gonna read a sci-fi book, why?
Right. With what purpose?
So
Yeah.
what's the point behind it? And so and then if you have the starting point of I want to change the system and therefore I need to share with people and support them to see more effectively and use the tools and so forth, then literally you can read anything because your starting point would be to then utilize that. And we're suggesting sci-fi and specific sci-fi because we're watching the elite create a world based on certain ideas and we're trying to show everybody here's those ideas. And can you see they're just living out a book, kind of like in the past? Like, why did Israel get created? Isn't it because people were like, hey, we have to create this temple and blah blah blah? And it was like some book, it was like literally a sci-fi book that they're just living out. Like they had these ideas, not their own ideas, it was based on these fucking books they read and they're like, we got to make that happen. It's literally no different.
Dude, so I want to get into that with like the like where did these ideas come from, these books and all that? Because I was listening to an interview where this guy is like, hey, I was he was talking about his journey into Christianity and then how he studied his way out of Christianity. And he said, like, oh yeah, I was in prison. There were all these books available to me. I had all this time. And so I just started reading, the Bible, and I started reading Islam, the Quran, and like he's like, I read all of it. And he decided to become a Christian or whatever, or because that's what he grew up around. And then he's like, as he studied more and like going into church and everything, he was like, yeah, I was telling the pastor like I'm reading the apocryphal texts, right? Apocryphal texts, and the pastor was like, yeah, be careful with that stuff.
Don't read those. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, well, now I'm really gonna read it. But he was saying how what he
Maybe
found
tell
out,
everybody what apocryphal means because they don't fucking know. Like, most people don't know.
man, I don't know, look it up.
It's just the books that they don't put in the Bible
Right, yeah,
that they could have put, but they don't.
right. Um, but I'm wondering now, because apocryphal, that's got to be Greek. What's cryphal? What's that? Like that's
Well,
got
it's
to
just
be,
adjective.
yeah.
It comes from apocrypha,
Okay, yeah. Okay,
so it's
okay.
just an
So,
adjective. Yeah.
but what's Cripha? What's that?
Oh, look up apocrypha.
I'm looking it up.
Look at the
Hideaway.
etymology.
The hideaway.
A hideaway, because yeah, okay.
Mm.
So apo is away, right? And I guess
Crypt.
crypt. Okay, yeah.
They were
Time.
esoteric
Crypt.
writings that first were prized,
Cipher. I don't know.
later tolerated, finally excluded.
So they're calling these texts the hideaway texts.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay, that's interesting, right?
They're like, oh, well,
Um,
it's not. I mean, here's the thing: like, how do you know whether it was inspired or not? Because if the whole idea is not whether it's they try to make this balance of it's inspired by God, but we're also using archaeological techniques and textual techniques and analysis to know if it's legitimate or not. And you're like,
To me, it just sounds like you examine the text to see like what stories are going to allow us to control people the best. Like people are.
if you already have an idea that Jesus is the Son of God,
Mhm.
and then you exclude texts that deny that, let's say,
Ah,
or put doubt on that, are you really,
you're not being honest.
well, how do you know that like Jesus is the Son of God? Well, this other text, that one's inspired. Well, you can't
Well,
use that
but
argument
I got a
because
feeling
you're,
from it, and I
but
felt
yeah, I'm
like
saying
this
you
was
can't use
inspired.
that argument because
Right.
where did you get, you got that idea from this text? You would had to know it was inspired in the first place. So
Right.
you can't use the fact that this other text contradicts that idea because you don't know that that idea in itself is valid. And it's like, so you have the assumption that the idea is valid and you're rejecting things that would make your religion say something else or come
Yeah.
to a different conclusion. And so it's just an impossible situation because
Yeah.
I mean, I've been going so much into all the Islam versus Christianity and everything. And, I was telling Katie the other day, like a few weeks back, like, hey, I really think Islam is a much more effective religion than Christianity because of the way they make their claims.
Mhm.
But I was telling her this morning, I think Christianity is actually a better religion because the problem is with Islam is they claim that, like, okay, I sent you guys that debate, right? The one with
The Fresh and Fit one.
yeah, yeah.
I didn't
And
watch
there
it,
was,
but
well, yeah.
I saw because Katie actually sent me a bunch of videos, which we could get into later. But I saw that Patrick Bet David had some of those same people on his show, on his
When
podcast.
recently or what?
It had to be recent. It had not too long ago.
I feel like I remember seeing something about him having some people, and I kind of ignored it at the time. I don't
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Well,
But
anyways, one of the arguments was like the guy. I just remember the Christian saying, "We're not a people of the book. Like, that's not our thing. Like, and so meaning Islam, they're like God directly revealed these words. This book it is the words of God.
uh
He spoke these words, right? Versus the Christian Bible, they're like, look, we know these books were written by people after the fact. We know that. We accept that. Now, maybe a lot of Christians don't realize that, but I'm talking like the theory level, the scholar level, right? Of people who still believe it. They're like, we know these were written after. We know this is an inspired explanation of what Jesus said or what he did. It's an amplification written by other people. We're not saying God wrote this text like Islam is.
Mhm.
So then the problem is with Islam, then they have to adhere to what the fuck it says.
Yeah.
And so the reason I was saying actually I think Christianity is a better religion is because they require even more faith. Because it's
Mm.
like I have to believe in the story about Jesus and God, not on the fact that God told me the story.
Yeah.
But I have to believe in the story, and then I have to assume that all these people are telling me more about that story. So you have to already have faith that Jesus Christ died for your sins because it wasn't even in the original book. It wasn't even in Mark.
Yeah.
So like you have to have the faith, and then everything else sort of bolsters it.
Mm.
It's not we believe it because it's written in the book.
Yeah.
Because the book commands us to believe it. Whereas the Muslims, they believe it because it's commanded by the book. So I was like, actually, from the perspective of religion as faith and belief,
Yeah.
Christianity is a stronger religion in that regard. Do you see what I mean?
It requires more faith.
It requires more
I
actual
suppose.
faith. Right.
But yeah. I don't know.
I mean, I know I'm playing with the words here, but
Yeah, because it's really interesting because with Islam, it's like uh you got to go along with a lot of contradictory stuff. It's
well, and see, the thing is, on the surface, if you just watch the videos made by Muslims talking to people they're trying to recruit, it's like it all sounds really good. Like sounds good from the perspective of man, like it's never been altered, the text, like it was directly really revealed by God. It's been perfectly preserved, like all these things. And you're like, it's hard to argue with that if you accept the premise that there's a God, right? If you accept the premise as a God, it seems pretty solid.
Yeah.
But then you start looking into it, you're like, wait. So was the Quran written down when Muhammad was alive? Yes, but not in a book format. It was written down by people like on like a stone
Uh-huh.
because they were trying to memorize it. The whole point of the original Quran was that it would be passed down through memory. It wasn't until later that they decided we're going to put this into a book that can
Uh-huh.
be, because I think they started to realize if there's one dude who perfectly memorizes it and he dies in battle or this or that or whatever happens,
Yeah.
there's no record of it. We're fucked, right? So
Right.
they were like, we have to write it down and put it into a book and say this is the official one. And even there was like 4 guys who were writing it down, and they had different numbers of chapters and shit. And so you start to realize like, oh, you're just lying
Yeah.
that it's perfectly preserved. Like, so because if you don't, and what I'm seeing is when you see this, the Christians and the Muslims debate, if the Christians know their shit, they're actually way better at arguing the point. They
Okay.
actually have
Okay.
better rhetorical skills.
Uh-huh.
Sorry, not rhetorical skills. They have better like uh knowledge based argument.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
It because and like there was one, I think I told you about this. I'm sure you didn't see this one yet, Mitch, but there was this Christian arguing with Muslims. And so this was like 2 guys who kind of know their shit, right? And it was like in Speaker's Corner in Britain or whatever. And the Christian guy's like, um, he was like, I should remember the one that I was thinking of. There was one where he was like, do you have one piece of archaeological, um, contemporary archaeological evidence that these 3 people that were important in the Muslim faith or whatever existed? Okay. Oh, yeah, this was the point. And the guy, instead of answering the question, now contemporary means, for example,
Like something
a
that
thousand
existed
years from now,
alongside.
how you know I existed? Because there's videos of me talking.
Yeah.
But even if there wasn't, there's like a record in a hospital that says I was born.
There's also like a Vice article.
Right. Or like maybe Drake writes his autobiography and I was like, and says I was friends with Cameron.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's contemporary. That's not 200 years later. Someone says I existed. And so he's like, do you have something contemporary that show? Because it's like these 3 guys that are important in your faith, they're like caliphs, they're like leaders of entire regions, and there's no contemporary record of them existing.
Yeah.
200 years later, there's someone writing about them existing. And so he's trying to show like your whole thing is based on like actually it's myths. None of it's actually like real. It's like just made up stuff. And the guy's like, well, you believe in Moses, right? And the guy said yes. And he goes, well, where's your contemporary archaeological evidence that he exists? And he goes, well, look at the context though. Moses existed. He was in Egypt as a slave, went through the desert, wandering through the desert, got to the promised land and died. Why would there be any like third party referencing of his existence from that perspective?
Right.
And that was 700 years before the other guys you're talking about, when there was different technology of writing things down. And this guy was the leader of a fucking existing thing, and
Right.
nobody's referencing his existence. So it was, so my point is like, they have a really good knowledge-based arguments.
Mhm.
Whereas the Muslims, then what they do, what I've seen anyways online, these big popular guys, is they just try to use rhetorical tricks. Like when they're arguing, they're like, hold on, Mitch, or they'll be like, hold on, what's your name again? Mitch. Okay, cool, Mitch. Nice to meet you. Now, Mitch, let me go back. Like they'll do stuff like interrupts and like, you know, and they'll be like, you're not answering the question. You're not answering the question. No, yeah. And then they'll say like, okay, but you still haven't answered the question, and they'll change the point and stuff. So they
Yeah.
don't. Whereas you watch the Christian guys and they're like, okay, hold on, let's go back to the point here, you know, and they're like very. So it's fascinating seeing that, because if you just stay in the world of Islam is great, and you're just getting the videos that are like trying to persuade you and you don't know anything, it can be pretty cool from that perspective. Like you can easily buy into it, right?
Yeah.
But it's playing upon and I'm not here defending Christianity. You know what I mean? Because at the end of the day, it's still a fucking story and it makes
Like,
no sense.
It's so funny just watching, because I mean, you go back over the last 3 or 4 podcasts, right? It's like Cam has been such a nerd about learning about Islam and the different arguments and Christianity and all of it. And not to say like you didn't know any of this stuff or some of this
Well, I
stuff
didn't know
at
a
least
lot of the
before.
details.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But how much you dived into it, and like every week you're sending us more and more. It's like, oh, and then look at this argument and look at this. Like, but okay, how many people can actually spend that amount of time researching a topic and get really that deep into it and really understanding it, and then do that with something else. Because okay, somebody can do that maybe for one subject, right? But that's even rare. But then to do that for like multiple subjects after
They
subject after
either
subject after
they either
subject.
believe that thing and that becomes their life, or their life
Yeah.
becomes just the critique of it.
Right.
Like you don't have like the ability to then move to the next point and so forth, right?
Right.
But I also had the advantage of everyone already has done the fucking research and it's all out there.
Yeah.
But this is what remember what I was showing you, the tour of Powell's
Yeah.
back in 2007. That's what I was doing then.
Right.
I would go into it. I'm like, I'm going to read every fucking thing Robert Anton Wilson wrote. And I'd read it all. And I'd be like, there's something missing here.
Mhm.
And then it'd be like, he'd reference like Timothy Leary. So I'd get all of his shit and I'd read all of his shit. And I'm like, or I'd read enough to be like, something missing.
Do I need
and
to
I'm like,
take more acid?
and I'm like, why is he talking about this John C. Lilly guy talking about the Dolphins? Like, let me read his stuff. And I'd read that. And I'm like, but then each thing is still, there's like a little piece of it. Because like Robert Anton Wilson was talking, and Timothy Leary and John C. Lilly were talking about programming the human biocomputer. So they had some points that were really interesting that no one else realized until that point necessarily, right? But then they were tying it back to like ancient Vedanta stuff, or like not Vedanta, what's the Bhagavad Gita and all this stuff, right? So then I would read that, and I got into a lot of that from reading Colin Wilson. And Colin Wilson was a guy who was like 18 or something, who like quit university and just went to the library and started studying shit and then started putting it all together, right? So I'm just kind of reinforcing your point about having that ability to process all of the points, right?
Yeah. Like I don't know, this was maybe 2 months ago. It was before Xander was born. I would on Sundays go and like go to Barnes and Noble and just find different books from different sections, right? Just like catch up on it for like 2 hours, right? Sit at the coffee shop. Because to me that's like fun. It's like a good way to just kind of, expand. And I found the Manly Hall one. It's like Secret Teaching of All Ages, right? And I checked it out years ago, and I was like, this is way too much. But now I have TT and everything. So I'm like taking bits and phrases and all this, and you just see how it is so fucking deeply intertwined that there's inequality. Like there's all this stuff. There's this a God type figure or God type figures, or you can rise through the ranks in the hierarchy, and you can be an alchemist, or you can be a fucking saint or whatever. And it's just so interwoven into it. But it's like, yeah, why am I reading it? It's because I want more stories, more understanding, more different ways I can get across what we're doing. And it just further cements like why none of that shit has
Well, like
answers.
if you were going to sell somebody a water purification system and they had something else, wouldn't you need to understand what they have and why they have it?
They have a Coca-Cola fountain.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, like you need to understand. I was just the first thing in mind was water purification, but like they need to have, you need to have an understanding. And so my whole point of going into this, I do two things. One, I want to understand it, so I understand where they're coming from, and no, and you can't hide behind well, but did you know about the 115th blah 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 or whatever statement where it said this, and you're like, oh, for example, remember in San Diego 2 years ago, or I guess it was a year and a half, whatever, and there was a guy there who was Muslim at the self-perfected event, right? There was a guy there, anyways, and he was like, oh yeah, this destiny principles, all that's in Islam. And people would tell me about that, and they'd be like, yeah, I just didn't know how to argue that because, isn't it in there? And I'm like, well, I haven't studied this. I mean, no, but at the same time, I can say no because I understand it's not in there. But
Yeah.
But the problem is the guy can be like, well, but then in this thing, Allah said this, and they can kind of try to use the fact that you don't know of like, well, how can you know it's not there if you didn't study it? And it's like, so part of going into the Islam thing is like, what do they actually say? And and what I like to do is just kind of open myself up of like, I'm not going to be afraid of being
sucked
in, whatever, but I'm going to look at my thoughts and see where the thought's going, because I know my thought's not me. So even if my thought starts to go in that direction, I'm going to watch it. You know what I mean? Of like, oh wow, this maybe like my thought of like, this makes people feel peaceful. Like, There's, and I can see like, oh, I can see someone searching for that, how they're gonna get sucked in by following that thought.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
You see what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
if does Islam bring you peace?
Well, it's the religion of peace. Haven't
Well,
you
I
heard?
know, but does it bring you peace? Let's look at every fucking Muslim country. Are they living in peace? You're like, well, that's the fault of the world. And it's like, but the promise of the religion is going to bring you peace. It seems to bring you the opposite.
Right, and that's such a good point because it's like out of the different, let's say, counter arguments to Destiny, for example, right? There will be major things people will use. And so it's like out of the limited time we have here, what are those highest leverage things that we can learn and understand that can support us with our mission, right? So something as fundamental as like Christianity and Islam makes more sense than you studying fucking Zoroastrianism or like, I don't know, some fringe philosophy.
Whoa,
So there's like
whoa, whoa,
certain
whoa,
things you
whoa, whoa.
can.
Are you saying don't study Zoroastrian? Hang on.
Mary knows
What do you have
because
against
that's Mary.
Zoroastrian? Whatever, however you say it.
Can I show you guys something real quick? I had mentioned this the other day. I'm going to pull this up real quick on here.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Because I had mentioned this.
Oh yeah.
Ooh.
This is another thing I found in that Powell's library. And so I looked at it. So I was able to process a little bit of it. And then my point is, you can get sucked into so much stuff. So how many people have heard of this? I'm sure you guys, unless I mentioned it, have never heard of this, right?
No.
I heard of it from one really weird fringe dude, but I never looked
Okay,
at
so at some point, but most people probably have not heard of this, right?
Yeah.
But I just want to show you an example of this. Okay, let's just look at something. I don't know.
Are you-
The
Seven.
universe of
Oh
universes.
shit! It says 7. It must be real.
Look, I'm just going to read it out loud for people. Space levels of the master universe. The universe of universes is not an infinite plane, a boundless cube, nor a limitless circle. It certainly has dimensions. The laws of physical organization and administration prove conclusively that the whole vast aggregation of force, energy, and matter power functions ultimately as a space unit, as an organized and coordinated whole. The observable behavior. Okay, I'm just look at all this. The central universe, the 7 super universes, the first outer space level. Look at all this. The domains of the unqualified absolute. When Urantia astronomers peer through their increasingly powerful telescopes into the like, look at all this. Universal gravity, the personality gravity of the universal father, the spirit gravity of the eternal son, the mind gravity of the conjoint actor, the cosmic gravity of the Isle of Paradise, physical gravity, spiritual gravity, mind gravity, space and motion. Look at these. They have these precepts, right? Look at all this. And that was just from one paper. Where's another one? Which one do you guys want to look at? What do you see?
Solitary messengers.
Yeah.
Where do you see that one?
23.
Go past
23.
the solitary messengers. Nature and origin of solitary messengers. The 7 spirits of the Havana circuits of the infinite spirit brought into being the vast core of solitary messengers. Who are these solitary messengers? I'm assuming it's probably like Buddha, Jesus, right?
Mm.
Solitary messengers are not isolated in their service. They are constantly in touch with the wealth of the intellect of all creation. They're capable of listening in. They're like the universe power directors.
They can read your thoughts too.
Assignment. Look at this. Messengers of the Paradise Trinity. The Havana Circuit. Okay. Like, dude.
Damn.
Look at this.
Damn.
Look at this.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, this book is like fucking this, right?
Oh, the faith of Jesus. There we go.
Look, the crucifixion. It's got all the stuff about Jesus and the crucifixion. And look, the Son of God, the thief on the cross. Like, what? The faith of Jesus. Jesus enjoyed a sublime and wholehearted faith in God. He experienced the ordinary ups and downs of mortal existence, but he never religiously doubted the certainty of God's watch, care, and guidance. So you got, I mean, I didn't even know it was going to go into all this.
Right in there, you can see the abdication of responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
The man, the religion of Jesus. What is there like a point to all this? Where's the conclusion? And God consciousness is equivalent to the integration of the self with the universe. On its highest levels of spirituality, only the spirit content of any value is imperishable. Even that which is true, beautiful, and good may not perish in human experience. Even man does not choose to survive. If man does not choose to survive, then does the surviving adjuster conserve those realities born of love and nurtured in service. And all these things are a part of the universal Father. The Father is living love, and this life of the Father is in his sons, and the spirit of the Father is in his sons' sons, mortal men. When all is said and done, the Father idea is still the highest human concept of God. So could you get sucked into this?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Dude, it even kind of sounds
Especially if
give
you
me a
like
little bit
fathers.
like Neothink vibes, like the original Neotech when they're talking about like the universe and gravity and
The Urantia book describes an endless destiny for humankind, teaching that living faith is the key to personal spiritual progress and eternal survival. It also describes God's plan for the progressive evolution of individuals, human society, and universe as a whole. Like,
we need some
so,
definitions to those words.
so when you go, okay, is there a God? Is there not a God? When I say is there a God, I mean like higher being, supreme power, or something, right? Let's say you say, well, Cameron, I know Christianity is true because there is a supreme God. I'm like, okay, so let's say there's a supreme God. Here's all the fucking options of how that could play out and what that could imply and what that could mean.
Yeah.
Well, no, I know it's Christianity. How do you know? Have you fucking read the book of Orontia?
Right.
Because the way you look at that, it's like it's not really like you believe in Jesus per se. It's about you becoming God conscious. They're like, well, that's a heresy. Blah blah blah. I'm like, okay, so let's just stick with Christianity. Okay, let's just stick with Christianity. Okay, how many denominations of Christianity?
45,000. More than 45,000. Okay.
That's how
so-
many fucking different, slight, subtle interpretations there are.
But
And have
the
you looked at all
the low
those?
processing
Have you
person then goes,
And they're
well,
all based
God's
on
in there
this.
somewhere.
I would say, I'm a guessing, at least half of them, are based on the same book.
Yeah.
You could say Mormonism, they have another book. Okay, Jehovah's Witness, maybe it's like different, I don't know, but most of them are just the same book.
But
There's
then
thousands of different ways of interpreting it.
Yeah.
It's
So
really
you can't
though,
fucking say it interprets itself.
it's that like cop out thing when people have low processing, then they go, okay, well, there's some kernel of truth in all of them. So we'll just kind of get by and we'll
Dude,
figure it out.
I've been thinking about that.
Mhm.
Here's my conclusion about that. There are kernels of truth in all this, in every single point. But I was realizing it's the points where they disagree
Is the real kernel of truth.
in each one.
Is the fact that
I'm not making that as an absolute statement, like every
Yeah,
single
yeah,
point they
nah.
disagree, but I'm saying like the
Can
truth
you
in
give an example to
Christianity,
explain that?
like meaning what do people assume is where they all agree? Let's just assume that's true. They all
That-
have some things like where they agree.
There's like being benevolent is good. Like if you,
Right.
if you
And you shouldn't kill and
yeah,
like,
if you're
Right.
good, it's gonna be a good.
But they don't
thing.
all even agree on that.
right. And that God's gonna
'Cause-
like take care of everybody. Like, yeah.
Yeah,
But like
there's some intelligence to life.
I
That's
would
how God-
say that I'm just trying to think of an example here. Like when I look at Mormonism, what makes it different than true Christianity is where it kind of like makes more sense.
I don't think they call themselves Mormons. It's kind of like the Friends. They don't call
Uh-huh.
themselves Quakers. You know?
I think that, you know why though, is because the word Mormon became associated with a cult. So they would say, no, we need to say Latter-day Saints.
Mm,
That's what they
Yeah.
say.
Saints sounds a bit more acceptable. Mormons like
It's like when you study that in Mormonism, they don't believe the reason why Christians reject them as Christians is because it's so ironic. Because why do Muslims reject Christians as valid?
for following a man and calling
For
him
worshiping a
God.
man and calling him God.
Yeah.
But the Christians reject the Mormons as Christians because they believe the God, like Father and Son, are two distinct gods.
Yeah.
They're like, he's literally his son. They're both gods. They both achieved God status by following the things of the God that taught them.
Yeah.
And I'm
God
like,
status.
actually makes more sense.
Right. Yeah.
So that's what I mean is like there's some more kernel of truth in Mormonism, but it's the part where it disagrees with Christianity.
Yeah.
Like the part I like about Christianity is give as you want to receive, like maybe, or there may be some specific thing. So there's these points where they disagree. And it's kind of like when I was studying Timothy Leary and they talk about programming the human biocomputer. I'm like, there is some truth in that, but you don't get that in Christianity.
Right.
So it's not the parts where they overlap. It's all the disjointed parts where they don't overlap. You put all that together. I'm not saying literally every single point. I'm just saying it generally, right? but like then you've got the truth in a way.
So when you're saying like the parts where they disagree, you mean, let me just move myself over here. You mean the parts like this, like you mean like
Oh, here we go.
like this guy. So
do it.
these guys.
Oh yeah,
I've
what is this about? I saw
I've
this
never
guy
seen
taping
this. I've never
himself
seen
up.
this.
Is he?
Yeah. So
What is this?
I love this.
Oh wait, can you
Rabbi
hear
Raps?
it? No, you can't hear it. Hang on. He says we're having a little debate. Let me make sure you can hear it.
I saw that other video I sent you guys. You should do that one next. Let's do some
He
of those,
wraps
dude.
the
It's-
tefillin towards himself. My tradition is to wrap the tefillin away. Who's right? Am I right or is he right? Oh, God is right. That's the answer.
Here's my shin.
You put the shin there. We put the shin there.
Oh, yeah, we do only one here.
Oh, different Jews, different traditions. So why do Chabadniks wrap away and other Jews wrap towards? I don't know, but here's my theory.
Okay, look. So even within the Jews, they have like different. These guys they wrap themselves with the tape, but even they have a different like. Oh, he wraps it towards him. I wrap it away. I put that thing down here. He puts that thing up here.
For most, Judaism is about bringing God to me, which is beautiful. But for Chabadniks,
It's about getting God away from them as far as possible.
So that's why you wrap stuff towards you.
Judaism
It's 'cause it's-
is about sharing God's light with the world. Shabbat shalom.
Well, which is it then?
Shabbat shalom.
Well, hold on. But which is correct? Is it about bringing God to you, or is it about sharing God with the world? Which is it? And they're like, well, we're covered. We got both covered. So I can have my thing that contradicts this thing, but since we have both of them, we got both bases covered. We're all good. To each his own. It's like,
There you go. There you go. This one is also really interesting.
okay.
All right, let's watch it. Let's watch it. Warning: if you have kids, it might be intense.
all its forms. I denounce the spirit of suicidal thoughts. I did.
And it's like I dropped down and all the demons came through. I said, "Ah," like screaming like bloody murder. The video is playing in my ears, it's on my chest, and I'm screaming and in the garage. And now my whole family bursts in and I'm like screaming like, help me. And I'm choking myself.
Because the demons are doing that to you.
I have like super strength. I'm like pushing them. They were really scared because I had so much power. Like
The demons.
Yeah, like
Or gave you power.
that gave
yeah.
me
She's like-
power.
Wow.
And
She wants
they-
to clarify the demons, right?
I have so much power.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Demons.
Sorry. The demons. Yeah.
Demons.
The demons.
Give you power. Yeah.
I was so hungry. The demons, right? Yeah, the demons were hungry. That's why I ordered the extra appetizer.
I just want to clarify, or not clarify, but I just want to share this point of like I've seen people like what she was doing in that first scene. I've seen people doing that, not at church, at energy clearings. They
Right.
do stuff like that, like all the time.
Which they'd probably consider as demonic.
yeah, exactly. But like,
Drake, did
They-
you do
they
an
also-
ayahuasca ceremony? Did this happen in your ayahuasca ceremony?
No, I think that was just throwing up because the stuff is toxic to your body.
it's literally just throwing up.
Dude, look, this happens to me probably once a week because I eat way too many fucking like super hot peppers in my salsa. And then like the next morning, I'm like, "Ah!"
And I'm like choking myself because it's so hot. Yeah.
It's the demons though.
You should,
It's-
you should
it's-
call your hot sauce demon sauce, Cameron.
Cam, so this is some of the rhetorical stuff you were talking about Islam.
Dog as a pet or for security reasons. As a pet, it is totally prohibited. The Prophet said, alayhi salatu wasalam, that angels do not enter a house where there's a portrait, a statue, or a dog. And he said that whoever keeps a dog other than a dog of a shepherd dog or a dog for hunting or guarding, then each day out of his own good deeds, Allah will erase and deduct the weight of Mount Uhud of good deeds, of hasanat. A friend of mine, a relative actually, who has a chihuahua in his house.
Guard
And
dog, right?
So many times our relatives tried to give him advice and he said, oh, it's cute, it's lovely, it's this, it's that. So I said to him, listen, do you have enough good deeds every single day that would equal Mount Uhud in hasanat? He said, not even 1/10 of that. I said to him, then in this case, you're in debt because every day this is being erased and deducted from your good deeds. And this, my friend, means that you're in real deep trouble. Dog.
So just to clarify here, you can't have a dog.
Oh, he was it. I was just watching that car.
I know. The car was fascinating.
I was thinking it's gonna fall off. I didn't know.
No, not even
Mount
once.
Hood is that
Whoever
driving down
drives
Mount
this
Hood?
car is a pro. But but if you have a dog, that is a big
Okay,
part.
okay. I have a half Australian Shepherd. Does this count?
Are you using it as a pet or as a shepherd?
The way she chases me when I'm biking or when Aristotle's biking gives me shepherding vibes.
Okay, is
But
it a
that's like
guard
once a
dog?
week.
Is it a
I'm
guard
more
dog?
just
Okay, hold on. Hear me.
bark.
I gotta show you guys this. Okay, I'm gonna
Okay.
do mine, Drake.
Okay,
I
okay.
mean, she is very cute, and I do enjoy.
So this
you know,
is this
petting
is
her,
this
so.
is from the Hadith, which is like sort of the companion to the Quran, right? Of like the
Okay.
things that
Wait, what is it
that
called?
Muhammad's
Hadith?
Hadith. Hadith.
Hadith.
It's basically like
Okay.
people who knew Muhammad wrote down a bunch of stuff that he said in addition to when he dictated the Quran itself. So it's kind of like clarifications of stuff. I don't know why they need it, because apparently fucking Allah can't be clear about what the fuck he meant. So he needed someone else. Gabriel. So this is the angel Gabriel made a promise with the
You
messenger of
didn't read
Allah.
that part in the parentheses.
Hamdilliam. Made a promise with the messenger of Allah, Hamdilliam, to come at a definite hour. So basically, he made an appointment. The hour came, but he didn't come. So basically, Gabriel fucking got tied up, whatever, forgot. You know, he's late. You've been late to an appointment, right? And he tried to
I've
make
been
up
late
some
before.
excuse like, "Oh, sorry, I was had a family emergency."
Yeah. That's a great one. You
There
can't
was a
question that
staff
one.
in the hand of the messenger of Allah, Hamdilliam. He threw it from his hand and said, "Never does Allah back out of his promises, nor do his messengers." So he's rebuking the angel. Oh, no, actually, no, this is just his assumption. Then he noticed a puppy under his bed and said, "Oh, Aisha, when did this dog enter?" She said, "By Allah, I don't know." He then commanded that it should be turned out. No sooner had they expelled it that Jibril came, and the messenger of Allah said, "You promised to visit me, but I waited for you to come, and you didn't." Whereupon he said, "The dog kept me from coming. We do not enter a house in which there is a dog or a picture."
Oh,
So now, where'd Mitch go? Oh, he said he did something. Okay.
yeah.
All right. I didn't realize he was going.
He had a dog in his house, so he couldn't.
He's like,
he
"I get
couldn't
that
be in a
fucking dog out of the
presence."
house quick." Mitch, did you get the dog out of your house? Was that what's going on? All right. Can you play that thing again real quick?
Hang on.
I didn't want to distract everyone. I'm here, but I don't know.
Okay.
I had an appointment with my wife where she was going to
Okay,
make me
so
breakfast.
all right,
did it.
no, this
Okay,
side.
go ahead. Good.
Okay,
As a pet or for security reasons.
Okay, no,
As a pet,
I saw
it is
this, I saw
totally
this.
prohibited. The Prophet
Yeah.
said, alayhi salatu wasalam, that angels do not enter a house where there's a portrait, a statue, or a dog. And he said that whoever keeps a dog other than a dog of a shepherd dog or a dog for hunting or guarding, then each day out of his own good deeds, Allah will erase and deduct the weight of Mount Uhud of good deeds, of hasanat.
so that
Okay.
must be a different like hadith or something that he
No.
takes away.
No, there's more than one.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, like,
But they're built
yeah.
upon certain stories and they put together, and that's why he said this other thing.
Yeah,
Because they had to clarify, why the hell does it say over here you get punished for having a dog? So they have to come up with a story of like, oh, well, angels won't, come
Enter
in
your
your
home.
house or
Yeah.
okay, so if you want to turn it off, you can, but
No. Look at the
what-
comments.
I don't need a fucking angel to come in my home. So I mean,
Just look at
I
the
don't have
comments.
pet dogs. Look, we don't have pet dogs. We have dogs.
Mhm.
They protect our livestock and so forth, right?
Oh, so
they're
you're
not.
good. You're good then. You don't have to worry.
But it's
about
not
this.
because fucking angels won't enter your house. We used to have
Yeah.
pet dogs, but just realize it's not. I'm not dissing anybody who wants to have a pet dog, whatever. But like
Look
the
at
point is,
Pablo's I like Pablo's comment. He just needs to wait for Ramadan to get 70x good deeds XP glitch.
6-year-old wife, dog's wrong. 6-year-old wife, check.
This is every comment, every video. It's like something Islam or whatever. It's like whatever they said, bad. but
Yeah.
6-year-old wife, good, right? And then there's always somebody defending it in the comments of that, right? And the replies to that. Oh, look, here's another one. Oh yeah.
All right. So, anyways, just to see the fucking. Will you play that other one with the Jew rapping himself and doing all the like the
The one from
Chad?
Before? Oh yeah, no, no, no. I
There's
don't know what
there's
you're talking about.
Chabadniks and then there's Chad Bodniks.
I know what you're talking about. Give me just a second. Let me pull
I
that
want
up.
the Chad Bodnik.
You want that?
Actually, I think
Chad
we're gonna
Bodnik?
find out. Is he rapping toward away or toward?
Hang on. Let me get that Chad
It's,
Bodnik
it's
going.
funny because it's like the whole wrapping the body thing. You see how it's an attempt at that human biocomputer thing. You know, like, oh, if I can just put the words on me, somehow it's gonna like program something. I mean, I don't think they would
There
use
we
those
go.
words, but
This one, right? We don't need that sound.
No, I like it. You
oh
gotta
my,
add to-
everyone needs to
Yeah,
watch this.
Oh yeah. Oh, he's rapping away. It looked like. Oh yeah. Look at all those books. Ladies, are you
I'm surprised he's not using
following?
Dead Sea skincare stuff that you get at the mall.
Yeah,
You know, the ones the Jews are always trying to sell you.
look at that.
Wonder how much of this dude's day goes into editing that. How many hours of that guy's fucking life?
That's it. That is his
But
whole life.
okay,
He just
so
showed
like,
you.
was there
That's
any
it.
other ones? I think I sent you a few in a row.
Listen.
Oh no, those other ones are fucking funny. We got it.
Katie sent me a lot too.
Okay, go ahead,
show
go ahead,
you
it's
that.
fine.
It's in the text.
Oh no, I'm in the grocery store and there's music. What do I do? What do I do? Do I run away or do I hide? Nothing. I just mind my own business doing grocery shopping and leave.
Sounds really practical.
You are sinful if you try to listen to it.
You are sinful if you try to listen to the music.
Who the
Okay.
fuck ever goes into a grocery store and tries to listen to the music?
The sinful people, that's who.
Wow, that
Look,
is
here's what I do, guys.
Wow.
I just play porn on my computers. I just don't watch it.
Mm.
I have it playing, so it's in my field of vision, but I just don't try to watch it.
Here's
good.
Here's a good one. I said to Katie, like, it's sinful to listen to music. Yeah, that might actually be a good idea for the average person. She's like, well, not in control.
Right.
So it's 35 minutes left to Shabbat, and Shayna is in the urgent care. You feeling a little better?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to do a stitch, but then she convinced them to use glue, and it's good to see you smiling. You didn't release us yet. Takes 25 minutes to get home. What do we do if we get stuck here on Shabbat? We're not allowed to drive on Shabbos. What do we do?
We asked them for some candles, challah dough, and we'll sleep here tonight.
Where do you think they keep the challah dough? Which drawer? Kiddo, this is a problem. This is a problem. All right, we're going. 22 minutes left to Shabbat. We're about 20 minutes from the house. Are we going to make it?
Maybe.
I hope so. And they gave her a goodie bag. I think she did this just for the goodie bag.
Yep.
Please get home. Please get home. Please get home. I don't want to spend Shabbos on the highway. We made it home.
Here's my question.
Hold on. He made it home.
Yes, you're asking the question.
Yes. Okay. Go ahead.
Yes. He said he had 20 minutes to get home before Shabbos.
It was 22 minutes before Shabbos.
Yeah. And a 20-minute drive, right? And he's in the car saying, please get home, please get home, please get home, because it must be really close.
It must be really close.
Somehow he gets home
Yeah.
and he's able to record. Like, I thought the whole point
I guess
was
he's got 2 minutes. He's got 2 minutes left.
he had lots of
Gotta
minutes.
record, please,
But you
please,
get out of
please.
the car. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay, we made it. And then when does he post this?
In time for Shabbos.
It's like Saturday, literally,
Thank
when he's
God.
posting it.
Well, it says May 3rd. Let's just see.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
I'm sure it's
It
not,
says May
but
3rd.
I don't think he would be that.
Cam, have you seen this one? You're gonna love this.
No.
One. You're gonna love this one.
Is this okay?
I would love a margarita in the pool. I don't have my kippah. So you gotta swim up to the shore.
This guy is such a fag.
Right. It seems like he's gay, right?
This
Like,
guy is so gay.
I mean, obviously he's he's married, but
I was
he's
like,
gay.
they're saying, do you have to wear a shirt and full because you're Jewish or just gay?
Why did you like lich before drinking?
These are called inconveniences that are really convenient for your soul. As long as you have parameters around your life, some types of rules, regulations, you know, it keeps us in line. And for a guy like me, I need to be kept in line.
Okay, here's the thing though, like, this is not against Jews in particular, but if you've got money, you're at a pool, and then you're saying that your inconveniences that you need to have to be holy is to put a little hat on before you drink a sip of your margarita in the pool.
And it looked like he did a little prayer.
But do you realize how that also justifies, well, these kids over here in fucking Gaza, fucking, like, you know how convenient it was, like, on Shabbos, if they got stuck in the hospital, they could sleep in the hospital. If you're a Palestinian, you don't want to sleep in that fucking hospital because it might be bombed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
so
yeah,
these
it's
little
craziness.
inconveniences, it's like, oh yeah, and like, you know, and if you're one of these other people and you're a child and you're just born into like fucking a household where they don't even have enough money, I guess your little inconvenience is you just don't get proper nutrition. Oh, what's an inconvenience that makes you holy though?
It's so funny, all the comments on this. Everybody's like, what the heck? Why do you even post these? Here's
Okay, hang on. May 3rd was literally a Friday. And like, so it would have been Friday night at sundown, which is the so I mean, unless it was last year, but that
Mitch is like,
So he obviously edited that video. So how did he get that up?
on Shabbos.
22 minutes.
Maybe it was another Friday. Maybe he posted it a different Friday.
You doing this is makruh. What is makruh? For you to lean on your left hand.
Then what am I supposed to do?
So either lean on both hands or lean on your right hand.
Oh, barakallah.
Come on, don't do anything makruh, man. What are you doing?
What is McCrew?
I think it's like Macron. I think they're just using that as like an insult now.
Yeah, you don't want to be Macron.
I
Lean
don't
on
know
your
if they're
left
serious
hand.
or they're making fun of it.
You see, lean on your left hand. No, I'm marrying a 9-year-old.
You had those other ones, Cameron. You said the one about that couple where the guy's a cat, and then the other one where she's like, me so holy, me so holy.
Yeah,
those
I think people are gonna feel like we're just dunking on Jews and Muslims.
Yeah, no.
No. Here's one. Here's one. That's a
Okay.
it's a Catholic.
Okay, here we go.
That was it. I thought there was gonna be a whole list. Places I can't go as a Catholic. Beach weddings.
Oh, because you have to do it in a church, right? Okay.
You have to do it in a church. And then she like clarifies, like, actually, you know, I could go to somebody else who's having a wedding outside as long as they're not Catholic. But if they're
But why
Catholic,
would you? Why wouldn't you be like, fuck you, you don't believe in the true God. Fuck you. You're that marriage is not valid. You guys should be Catholic. You should not be fucking getting married if you're not Catholic. Because
But
you're
that's
gonna
how she
fuck your
feels.
kids over because they won't be saved. What the fuck are you doing? No, you're like, no, I'll go to your fucking wedding.
that's how
Like
she
you
feels
don't
about
actually
Catholics.
care.
Yeah.
It's like Katie makes this point of like, it's just about the ritual. You don't care about the actual consequence of it. You just want to make
Yeah,
sure
the
you
implications
because
of
you
it, yeah.
followed the fucking rules. Because like you were saying, Mitch, that thing as a kid when you're just like you feel like God's watching you. You're like, as long as I do the things I'm supposed to do, then when He's watching me, I'll
I'm
be
gonna
okay.
go to heaven, and
It's
I'm not
this
gonna go to
anxiety
hell.
that's inside of you.
Yeah.
This is the Patrick Bet David thing I was telling you about. Check it out.
Okay.
Believe I should be put to death.
I believe that the punishment for apostasy in a correct Islamic state is death. I believe that that's
So
the correct. Let me finish. Let me just respond,
Yeah.
sir. I believe that that is the correct punishment, which has been revealed by God both in the Quran and the Bible. And for Robert to turn around,
I
and
asked
say-
you-
Let me finish.
I asked you to believe I should be killed
And
today.
I answered you, sir. I
Yes
answered you,
or
sir.
no?
I answered you.
Yes or no?
I answered you. And
Should I
it-
answer? You want me to answer?
yeah,
I said-
yeah, you answered me.
In a proper Islamic jurisdiction,
Yeah.
an Islamic nation, all of the laws of Islam and the Sharia, as revealed by God, should be applied.
So if we were in that kind of state,
including-
would you do it?
Including
I'm not the one that
with
executes
proper due process, with a proper court hearing, just like any nation of laws. The laws of the Sharia should be applied, including the death penalty for not only apostates but also blasphemers.
You
those who
didn't answer
insult-
me, yes or no?
We did answer.
Yes,
you.
we did answer.
Yeah, so I
We
should
did
be
answer.
killed.
We did answer.
I
your question.
deserve to be killed because I left Islam and became a Christian.
According to Islamic law, an apostate like you would be killed. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And
Why does he have to say according to Islamic law? Why does he have to say that instead of just like, yes, I think you should? Like,
right.
It'd be like if I said, should you pray 5 times a day? He's going to be like, yes. He's not going to go, well, according to the he's going to be like, yeah, you should. Okay, should I eat halal, whatever food? He's going to be like, yes. He's not going to be like, well, according to, no. Then you say like, well, should I follow that rule? Like, well, according to this, it says you should. Like, yeah, but do you think it should happen? Well, I think you should have due process, and if you follow the law, okay. But then at the end of that, do you think I should be put to death if I'm an apostate? It's like, well, it's like, hold on, you can see that you don't actually think it makes sense.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there's something wrong with it, or maybe you're just afraid that people will push back if you tell the truth.
Right. Because if he stands out, he's gonna get fucking killed.
Yeah.
He's in the law.
So here's the point though. Like, he's admitting it, and okay, maybe he's not an expert in Islam. It doesn't really say that or this or that, but obviously that guy believes that's what it says. So if those people get in fucking power over the world and make everything Islam, what do you think is gonna happen to people who don't want it? This is my point. Like, I'm not pro-Islam, pro-Christianity, pro any of these things, obviously. So it's like, because I can like watch like some like Shaheen Bazad or whatever, and he has some good fucking critiques of like the Western world. But that doesn't mean I want the fucking Muslims in power.
Yeah.
Like, they can have some cool points.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean you want because then you still have to be Muslim. So I have to accept there's a supreme being.
Yeah.
Dude, we were having dinner last night, and it's so cute because like the kids see Katie and I talking about stuff, and it's like they want to talk about it too, right? And so but Katie and I don't even think we were actually talking about this at this moment, but Cindy was bringing up this point. She goes, we were having dinner, and she goes, Cameron, this whole God thing, like, doesn't make sense. And I was like, well, why do you say that? Like, is she just saying that because we're saying it, or like, why do you think that? Right. And she was like, well, it's just not real. And I'm like, okay, but why do you think that? And she's like, kind of like, I could see her like kind of think about it. And I was like, well, let's look at it like this. Okay. I said, we've watched videos and we've watched videos where like these kids, they're like living in poverty, and they're like, yeah. And Max is like, yeah, we know about that. And I was like, okay, but remember when we went to that restaurant the other night in Louisiana, and there was that homeless guy, and you were asking me about that? I'm like, she was like, yeah, I remember that. And I was like, okay, so if people believe there's a God that is all loving, he loves us, he just wants everything great for us, and he's all powerful, he can do anything he wants, he can literally create this entire world, everything. And then I'm like, but then we also have poverty, we have people like these homeless people and so forth, right? And I'm like, how does, like, what do you think that implies about the God that people believe in? And he goes, well, then it can't be real. Right. Like, she's 5 years old, she can see that.
Yeah.
And you could say, oh, well, you brainwashed her to think that. Even if I agreed with you that that's what I did, then you brainwashed your kid to believe in God. So it's irrelevant the point of you said it and that's why they believe it. Because then don't tell your kids about God ever.
Right.
Is that, you'd be like, well, no, I have to tell them about it. Like, right. Because
them,
they're going to know whatever the fuck you tell them, and they're going to think the way you teach them to think.
Right.
But how do I make it make sense to her in that moment? Like, if I wanted her to believe in God, what would I have said? Let's say she brought up to me, well, how come there's all this suffering and these children dying? We've seen them. Because like, let's say we travel and we go to South Africa and we see the kids in the landfills. Like, what would I say as a parent?
You'd have to say that, like, they're denying God. That's what you'd have to say.
Yeah,
those
God
you'd
has
have to say that
we don't understand yet, and it will.
Well, it's because we didn't follow the commandments of God a long, long time ago. And it's because we rejected God that we have sinned, and it's created all these conditions. And she would say, okay, well, because she's like, I want to solve the problem, and therefore I want to accept God and have everyone accept God. So if we accept God, like, what does it mean to accept God? Wouldn't it mean to like reverse the mistakes we've done?
Well,
that's but it really just means you need to accept God in your heart.
It
and
just
love
means
him
you have to
and
have
accept
faith.
him. But well, so that was the problem originally, that we just didn't accept God.
What's
as
interesting? What's interesting about that is, like, in that story, Adam and Eve would have believed in God.
Why wouldn't they have?
Because they could see him, and
how did they reject God
in the garden? Right. It's just they didn't listen to him. Oh, okay. So that's
but then he didn't even look. I'm just going based on the story. That's what's written down.
Right.
He didn't give any reason why not to do it.
Well, because you would surely die. That was the reasoning.
What is death?
It's they probably didn't know what that was yet.
That's my point, though.
Yeah,
Does it
yeah.
explicitly say he explained what that means?
No.
Now you'd have to go to, well, in our tradition and in our scholars, they actually believe this was this. And like, I don't care. What the fuck does it say in the thing?
Yeah.
The story makes no sense. Like,
Yeah.
if that was the story, you know what? Reading Hyperion, and I don't want to spoil it too much for anybody who hasn't, but Fall of Hyperion or an Endymion. Oh,
Endymion.
you're on Endymion, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. You're past a certain point, I'm assuming. But there's this thing that happens. I'm not going to say what it is. And in the story, they explicitly go, well, if it wasn't for that Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah,
You know
yeah,
what I'm talking
yeah,
about?
yeah.
They in the story call
Yeah.
out
that
thing that happened in the story as a
Right.
Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah, yeah,
You know,
yeah,
because
yeah.
that's what it is. Like you're
Yeah.
like, because you're like, how the fuck are they going to get out of this situation? And then
Right.
the guy does a solution, but then the author himself calls himself out
Right,
with
right,
the
yeah.
characters. It's
Right,
so
yeah.
cool. And I'm like, that's
So
kind
how
of
are we
like,
gonna get to this other situation? How are we gonna get through this? Well, I don't think we're gonna have that Deus Ex Machina anymore. So,
yeah, I don't think we're gonna have that miracle that fucking happened. I
Yeah.
don't see. I don't even understand. Right? I'm sure there'll
Right.
be some context, but so it's like it's things like that. Like it's not explained in the story why it was wrong to eat it. Okay, because you'll die. But okay, why would that cause us to die?
Right.
And what does
yeah.
it even mean? The tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
And also,
So I don't have the knowledge of good and evil. Correct.
Yeah.
So therefore, is it? Why shouldn't I die? Well, because it'd be bad. What is bad?
yeah,
I don't know what bad is. Like to me, bad and good are the same. I don't know the difference. Like, well, like I don't understand. Like, what was God trying to be like? I don't want you to have the knowledge of good and evil because then you might choose to be evil. But I thought, okay, hear me out for just a moment, okay, guys? Just play the Christian part. Why is there evil in this world?
because we have free will.
Why do we have free will? Why didn't God just create us as perfect?
Because God wanted us to choose Him.
But let's go back to the original first story in the Bible. Did Adam and Eve have free will?
Well, yeah, that's why they chose to eat the fruit that He said not to eat.
But was everything perfect before they made the choice?
Yeah,
So why did he tell them not to make that choice?
to test them, so they could choose Him.
But what I'm saying is they didn't actually have free will.
Well, they had free will. It's because they chose to eat that fruit,
Why was it even there?
so that they could freely choose things that were not best for them.
But did they have free will or not?
Yeah, I just told you.
Okay, all right. Why was the tree there?
So that they could like eat that from that tree if they chose to
But why did he put it there?
test them.
Why?
I don't know. It's because so they could choose Him.
But
and not. And
Did they
listen
have
to
free
Him.
will? Yes or no?
Yeah, they had free will.
If he removed the tree and never put it there, would they still have had free will?
Yeah.
So why was it necessary?
So they could choose Him. So they could have a choice of not having Him as well.
Do you have free will? Yes or no?
Yes.
If there was nothing like, do you have, okay, let's say you're in a room. There's no guns in the room. Do you have the free will to kill me with a gun?
No. I mean,
Do you
I'd
have
to
free
get a
will?
gun
Do you have
first.
free will?
I have free will, but I'd have to get a gun first, and then
Right. So what does the presence or absence of the gun have to do with whether you have free will? Why couldn't they not have the tree? They have free will and they can still choose to love God.
Yeah.
Why do you need to have that to test them? That's like you knew they were going to fuck it up, but you didn't even explain why. You didn't explain what was the consequence of this. Like nothing. You're like, oh, but I put it there. You had the choice. You chose. Now you got to suffer.
What part of that is all loving?
Now you got to suffer for at least, let's say, thousands of years to where a child dies the moment they're born from being raped to death because of that thing back then. That makes no sense. And then also the solution to all this mess is we just got to choose God.
Yeah. Dude.
But how? How? Like what meaning what? Well, with all the negative shit going on, you'd have to just put on blinders and just ignore all of it and just
literally what
choose
it is.
God.
That's
And I'm like, we
literally
couldn't
what it
even
is.
do that when everything was perfect.
Yeah.
So what the fuck is the value of this choice? And I thought the point was free will. Like, okay, you wanted God to freely love you. God wanted you to freely love Him. So what you're really saying is, this is what they're really saying. God wants you to love him in spite of all the fucking negative shit you have to go through. Because it can't just all be perfect all the time and you love him. That's not really loving him. Okay. That's not how I think about my kids. I don't think about it like, I want to abuse them and they need to love me in spite of that. Or I want them to be abused. Like, I'm going to allow them to be abused. Like as a parent, would you let your kid be abused by other people?
No.
You're not physically doing it. You're having a choice. Would you let one child abuse the other child? Would you let your child abuse themselves?
No.
No, it makes
Like,
no fucking sense.
maybe there's a limit to it where like they're playing with a toy and they're doing something that's going to harm them. You're explaining it to them, telling them why not. And then at a certain point, there's nothing you can do. You can either take the toy away or allow them to experience a little slight amount of pain. And then they realize, like, okay, now I see why I shouldn't do that. Okay. So, but would you give your child a gun and be like, look, I told you. And then, well, you just got to choose not to kill yourself with it, even though you don't understand what you're doing. Like, you certainly wouldn't do that.
No.
But literally, that's what God did. He gave us fucking the ability to create nuclear weapons. You know, in terms of the platform for it, the potential for it.
Yeah.
And then acting like somehow we have free will.
Yeah.
And that's it. It makes no sense. It's like you have to. And
It's
this
like
is
a
just
certain
this is
level
just
of-
Christianity.
It's like a certain vocabulary threshold to have high processing enough to go, oh.
It's like it's
Or
it's
it's
not
like,
even
no,
about being
cannot
smart.
question.
It's not even about being smart. Because like that guy we were watching, that Jewish guy, I'm sure he's some kind of doctor or lawyer or something.
Yeah.
Like, he's not a dumb person.
Yeah.
But it's like at the end of it, it has to just be, nah, I want to be special. And I don't want to take responsibility for everything else. I don't want to go through, because then if you
That's
thought
the
about
real
it,
vocabulary that's missing.
if you thought about it like, okay, you know what? Even if there's a God or not, I'm not going to allow any of this bullshit in the world. Then suddenly, what do you have to realize? What are you faced with in that moment?
You have to take the responsibility.
So I got to go fucking convince all these fucking people who are participating in all this retarded bullshit. Like, okay, let's say you think Christianity is the answer. Well, then you still got to go convince all the Muslims.
Yeah.
Unless you're like, well, it doesn't really matter because at the end of the day, we're all going to die in heaven. We're going to be judged anyway. So you're not really serious. So you're not really trying to make. So you didn't really come to the point of I want to solve the problems
You're
here.
not
I'm talking
actually
about you
taking
want to solve.
responsibility.
I'm talking about you want to solve the problems here. I'm not talking about anything else. So if you want to solve the problems here, we're immediately faced with the point of I have to somehow go convince ultimately everybody in the world, but at least a certain percentage of people, so that things can change to a certain level where everybody else can have the opportunity to see the point.
Yeah.
That's why we talk about the new 1%, because then you have access to like the media. And if the media was telling everybody different than what it's telling everybody, like think about it. If you really objectively look at the totality of media in our world, it's on a net point negative.
Yeah.
It's on a net point brainwashing people to do bad things, not the best.
Yeah.
And what if it was on net brainwashing everybody? I mean, I know you don't like that term, but it's already doing that. But just stimulating, impulsing, suggesting, whatever word you want to use, suggesting to everybody on a net point, like, do what is best. And examples of it, and showing through stories how that could play out and the consequence of it. Like, now that it would make changing everybody's minds a lot easier, wouldn't it?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So you then at least got to get to that point where you have that level of influence.
Yeah.
But then even that level of the 1%, people are like, so you already have an excuse prepared within you of like, why would I do that? Jesus is going to save me. It's like, well, do you not see how your excuse is the same as the Muslims?
Right.
And the same as everybody else?
Right.
So it's just an interesting point, because then you realize like, I'm not special. That's not why I understand. It's because my vocabulary is at a point where, or maybe it's just because I feel like I've suffered enough. Maybe I was just unnecessarily highly sensitive to problems in my life that really aren't ultimately that bad compared to some other people's problems. But I was so highly sensitive to it that I was just like, I do not want to fucking suffer.
It's
what is the point?
It's also interesting, like, you know, Andrew Tate made a comment in that Candace interview at the end. He said, confrontation is certain. Like there's a certainty that you will face confrontation. And if you try to avoid confrontation, you will have confrontation with yourself. right? Or really you'll have conflict with yourself. But
Well, that's
get
how I
what
look
you
at
mean.
it too. It's like, let's say you don't change the system. You're like, I'm just going to go and compete in the system and do my best and make money and just put my head down and do that. At some point, what I'm trying to get across is you're going to be confronted by the system anyways.
Oh, dude. Oh, there's a perfect segue of like, because I wanted to bring up the whole ballerina farm thing. Because Christine has, Christine likes homesteading, whatever. And so when she's on Instagram, she gets impulse with a bunch of homesteading stuff like ballerina farm or the trad wife stuff or like half baked harvest. And it's always like somebody like baking something or creating something. And then like we try those recipes and I'm like, that was a good recipe. Like keep making that, but she's been telling me about this whole ballerina farm thing, because I guess so. Ballerina farm, just to give context, on her Instagram, it's a woman. She's got like 8 kids or something like that, and she makes things from scratch. And her kids help her and stuff. And like it'll have a recipe for pumpkin soup, and she'll make it in the pumpkin, which is kind of cool, And so people
It's
love.
very well produced.
Yes.
It's got the right music, the right voice,
Right.
the right everything. Right?
People love watching these. Like she gets tons of comments on it and everything, right? And I remember seeing a while back. This was I don't know, at least 6 months back. Somebody made a video of like, oh, and Christine was telling me about this of like, oh, did you know that this ballerina farm, her husband is like the heir to JetBlue, and they're like
I remember
billionaires,
hearing about this too.
right? And I was like, no, that's cool. It makes sense though to me. Like when she told me just that fact, when she told me that, it was like that makes sense that they would want to have like their own land, and just like and you can do that, right? Because I know the reality, the reality of like having land, and you've said this for years, like, oh, people who want to go live off grid, you don't realize that takes money to do that, right? A lot of money to do that, right? But anyway, so when I heard that, I was like, yeah, that makes sense, whatever. But then I saw a video somebody made of how like it was a video of how the rich love to cosplay as being poor, and they were using Ballerina Farm as an example, and then they were using like some other like historical rich figures who they would like go and live on like a little farm for a while. And
but even when I look at
plainly
their because I saw one of their videos, it was the response video to the hit piece, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm getting
they
to
don't live like they're poor.
But that's what I'm saying.
They're not living like the flashy lifestyle, but I'm like,
That's
you look
what
at their
I'm
house,
saying.
it's like really nice. Like it's not like luxury. It's not that sort of particular image of, we're not talking like Paris Hilton, Kim Kardashian luxury, but it's still actually luxury.
That's what I'm saying is like, okay, but that's not being poor. That's not cosplaying as being poor. That's like
in her videos, her kids are not dirty.
No, like it's like I like this aesthetic. Not even I like this aesthetic. It's like this is the lifestyle that I want. Like I want a homestead. Like that doesn't mean you're poor. Like people literally, okay. What's people's initial thought when they think of a farmer? Somebody dumb, somebody who's like, maybe not well off.
Dude, I remember when that perception changed for me. Was there was some movie a long time ago. I think I was like a teenager or a kid or something. And it was about, I don't remember the name of it or what it was, but it was like some rancher who like did cattle. And there was something about a conflict they were doing. I don't know what it was, what the movie was about, but it was like they had to like fight against something. And they lived like millionaires. I mean, they had a big, nice house. And I was like, I remember at the time the cognitive dissonance of like, oh, people who like do cattle ranching and stuff are rich.
Yeah.
I never realized, because I grew up in a city. I didn't know any of that. And it's just my first exposure to like, oh wait, these people are like, not all of them, but like, it's not like you're a farmer, you're poor. Like there are some who do it at a big level and they're fucking rich. I'm like,
yes.
Oh, I didn't realize that at all.
Okay. Now consider all the imagery and the impulsing that you get about farmers as a child. If I would have known you could be a farmer and be rich as a child, if I would have learned that and understood that, that's the route I would have wanted to go. Like, because I love being around animals. I love, like husbandry and feeding animals. Like that's something that I would have at least pursued in that regard. Because I remember even
there's definitely a lot more people who would probably go down that direction potentially,
right,
if they weren't impulse that it was just a totally negative thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Kind of like with women staying at home, like your impulse, oh, it's about you're getting controlled and all this bullshit. So they wouldn't even consider it, and they don't know the reality of it.
I remember, okay, you know how I went to Argentina just to meet with this like chef or whatever, right? Just to go to his restaurant and have an opportunity to be like, dude, you're amazing, right? Which in hindsight, he's not that amazing. But part of that was the way that he cooked was he would cook out in the open air. And like there was this idea in my mind of like, whoa, that's so cool. Like I can imagine I could live on the land and hunt something or whatever and cook out in the open air and also have this lavish lifestyle as well. Like this guy's marrying the things that I want, you know? Anyway, I'm bringing all this in because they're trying to make it seem as if like, they're still playing on that trope of if you homestead, if you farm, if you care about these, like
your assumption is that it's you're poor and
you're poor, right?
So these rich people are pretending to be poor, is what they're saying, when she was clearly not.
No, not at all. And then the other thing, so
it's only like it's in conflict with. Well, actually, this is why they're being attacked,
right?
Because they don't want you to go, oh, this is actually a cool lifestyle to pursue.
Right. So the point is like, okay, so recently there was a hit piece on that family. Like the way it was set up was some interviewer contacted them, said, hey, we'd love to write an article about you. And, can we come over and just, share your story? And they invited this interviewer into their home. They said, the interviewer was like nice and kind to them when they were in the home and everything. And they thought they were going to write a nice article about the family, and hence why they invited them in the first place. And then this person went off and I think wrote for the New York Times this hit piece on them that was just tearing their family, like misconstruing
making it like she was
everything.
under control by her
making it
husband
like,
and the
oh,
slave of him and all this
right,
stuff.
Right. And she's like, that's not how I live at all. Like that's not how
Not
I
even what they
feel.
saw when they were there.
Right, exactly. And like, so they're trying to purposely make this image of them, and it's shaping people, because I'm seeing now, I'm getting like, those random posts that people I don't even follow. I'm not even friends with friends of these people, and it's like randomly I'm seeing, the ballerina farm. I don't even know what it said. I don't remember anymore. But basically
Something negative.
It was something negative about them, of like, oh, rich people pretending to be poor and poor people pretending to be rich on social media, and look at how controlled she is, and she's like, did you know they're worth like something billion, and the heir to JetBlue and all this stuff, and I'm like, and people are attacking her, and what is she doing? All she's doing is like making videos of like her lifestyle, like, and Christine was bringing this point up to me, is like, okay, but like the Kardashians, they don't get that kind of hate. Like, sure, people like hate on the Kardashians.
They don't get hate, but they don't get the level to where the media is trying to tell you they're bad.
Right.
Don't listen to them. In fact, they're promoted as someone to listen to.
Yeah, right. And then Christine was also bringing up this point of like, even Half Baked Harvest, which is another similar, like, she just does recipes and shit. Like, she gets a lot of hate too, where people are like, oh, her family lives on a compound, how weird. And oh, she's appropriating this dish from Mexicans, like she's not Mexican. Like, it's a fucking recipe. Like, for crying out loud. Like, okay.
The whole idea of recipes is to appropriate them.
Right, exactly. Like, okay, so
hold on. It's like, we need all these different cultures because people have different foods and stuff and all that. It's like, yeah, but you're not allowed to make them.
Right.
You just have to go to their restaurant. I don't understand. Like, what? Like, isn't it like I'm helping my racism, like in alleviating it, if I'm adopting Mexican? Wouldn't it more likely I would be less racist if I eat the Mexican recipes? Like, what are you talking about?
And so the whole point being like, okay, these people aren't even doing anything really of consequence.
It's like you write for the New York fucking Times.
But what I'm saying is like, Half Baked Harvest is like, she's literally just
okay, yeah.
It's not like changing the system,
right? They're getting tons of hate, but because the system sees it as two things, they're getting lots of attention.
Yeah,
the New York Times are they competing for people's attention?
Yeah.
So if they see something that's getting a lot of attention, don't they want to take that and use it to get
Funnel it
attention onto
into-
what they're doing?
Yeah.
The only way they can do that, I mean, they could also get attention by amplifying and be like, what if they made this fucking amazing article about the implications of how cool it is what they're doing? They could also get attention that way, but what gets more attention?
Oh, conflict.
Yeah, hate, conflict. So also at the editorial board level, or not editorial, but the editor level rather of their business, if they're like, hey, I want to write this really great article about how amazing Ballerina Farms is and how they're showing people how to homestead and don't you think at some level it'd be like, no, we can't promote that.
Right.
Like so and so above us is going to get pissed if we promote that.
Yeah. Also look at the point of like, okay, that flies in the face of feminism.
That's my point.
You know, like
there's gonna be some point where like, yeah, but that is too much this or something, you know?
Right.
And also just from the perspective of the system wanting you totally dependent as a slave, it's even in any way suggesting a level of self-sufficiency, a level of getting things done. Like, I'll give you a quick example. I've told y'all about this in the past. Like, we have a gray water line that goes from our kitchen sink, dishwasher, mud sink. It's not the same as our septic. It's just those things.
Mhm.
And it drains out to a certain point in the yard, right? And what I did was when we moved in here, it was already set, but it was getting backed up. I didn't know what the fuck, man. So I had people come over, dig it up, try to do something. It would get backed up again. It was a constant thing, right? So eventually, actually it was when Josiah came over. I was already planning to do it, but he had a little bit of experience with some plumbing type stuff. So he helped me dig the whole thing up, replace the pipe. Now, and it goes out further than it did before. So it's not pooling up in the yard. It's just going out to a pond that we only use for water retention. And it's great. Well, then it started getting backed up again. But because I did all that with Josiah, like I was there with him, like we did all the work together, right? And so I knew every step, everything we did, right? And I was like, well, I think I know what the problem is, likely, because there was one section of pipe, maybe let's say 20 to 30 feet of pipe that we did not replace. Because we got to the point where everything was flowing and we're like, well, we're blowing with the pressure washer, everything, water's coming out. It seems like it's probably good. We don't need to replace that bit. Okay, so, but because we didn't replace it, it was old pipe. And then when things started getting clogged up, I'm like, it's most likely that's the issue, because probably there was clogs and it was just, we didn't know. And now it's built up to the point where it's a problem.
Yeah.
So I just, every day, a little bit, I would dig out that the ground around that pipe. And so every day I would do a little bit more just because I want to do it all at once. And then I got to the point where I saw the lettering go from green lettering to orange lettering or vice versa on the pipe. And I was like, this is the new pipe. That's the old pipe. Cut it, took that section of pipe out. The kids were out there, right? I was blowing it with the pressure washer, getting nasty, like gunk and like solidified soap and grease and bacteria and shit flying all over everywhere. I'm stinking, right? Cut the pipe again in half, blew out both sections to where I can see perfectly down both of them. Okay, it's clear. I haven't yet put it back in there, but the point is now I know. So here's my point. Because I did it all, I understand what it is. I knew where the problem would be. And it was clear, like you should see the amount of solidified shit that came out of that pipe. It's like, oh yeah, that's clearly what was causing the problem. I still have to put it back together and test it. But I mean, it's like 99% I know that maybe there's some other problem I don't know about, but that's what it was.
Yeah.
So I'm just saying, like, because I understood it, I did not have to hire a plumber. Now I could have in the interest of saving time and so forth. But even if I did, when there's a problem again, how will I know? So there's certain things that even though I could technically hire someone to do it, like with this walk-in cooler I'm doing, I want to build it.
Yeah.
I could go hire the contractor, but instead I'm just texting the contractor like, hey, can you come over for an hour and do a consultation? I'd rather do that and just tell me if I'm doing something you think wrong or whatever, than him do it.
Right. Yeah.
There's certain things where I do not have the skill. I don't have the time yet to build the skill enough sufficiently to do it in the time frame I want. So therefore I would just have them do it. But then the consequence is if something goes wrong with it later,
you can't fix it.
So my whole point is this, like, because I had done that stuff with the pipes, I didn't feel any stress about it. It was like, okay, yeah, not a big deal. Versus the first time when it got clogged up, I was just like, oh, what the hell? Like, we can't wash these dishes. Like, like, what am I going to do? And like, this was just like, yeah, I probably know what it is. I just take the time to solve it.
Yeah.
And so just that
Katie's
little
in the
bit.
comments saying you did hire several plumbers and they didn't solve the issue. So even
They did not solve
hiring,
the issue. Plus, they were really weird. They kept telling my daughter how pretty she was, and just like, get the fuck out of here, like, go away.
Yeah.
And like one time they came over and was like talking to Katie, and she was like, the guy was clearly like drunk or on something, and like, why was he even over here? Like, you know what I mean? So it's just like, I don't want people over here around my kids.
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what
yeah.
I mean?
Yeah.
So if I don't have to,
Yeah.
and so, but that aside, just the point of being able to have that self-confidence of, I know how to solve the problem. And this, from the bigger picture, going back to what I was saying earlier, is why people don't want to solve the problems in the world, and they ultimately are turning to religion. Now they're doing it primarily because their parents are impulsing them, but even they won't allow themselves to be challenged on it, because think of the world as a big fucking plumbing problem. And you didn't fucking create the plumbing system. You don't know how plumbing works. You don't know anything about it, except maybe you know how plastic is made. So because you're a specialist in plastic, or maybe you're the guy who knows how pipe fittings work, or maybe you're the guy who knows about gravity and how water flows in something, but you don't know how the pipe works. You don't know how it was laid. You don't know all the shit. You could have a fucking PhD on hydrodynamics, but the guy, the plumber who makes $100 an hour or whatever, can fix that, and you can't. So you have all these different people, and they're not coordinated. They can't share their information together. And even if they could, they're not even on the same page from a principle perspective of, why should we solve the problem? Right. And if we solve the problem, how should we solve it? What would be the result, or what would be the solution what would be the, I don't know how to say it, like the consequence or the conclusion that we're both going for?
Yeah.
And so everybody's like, and I was explaining this to my daughter last night. I was just like, so everyone's like, I don't know how to solve the problems like poverty and stuff in this world. But that makes me feel very bad. Because also, and I said to her, I said, look, I want you to think about it this way. I said, you have your mind, you have your body, and I said, but before you were born as Seneca in your body, where were you before that? Right? And she's trying to give me some answers. And I'm like, but like, as in you can actually remember it. She's like, well, no. And I said, and so when people die, they don't know where they go. They don't know where they were from. They have ideas, they have beliefs, but they don't know. And so they have anxiety about that. They have fear about it, because they think they're just their memories and just their body and just their mind that was born here on earth. And of course, self-honestly, that's not going to last forever.
Right.
And we were eating spaghetti last night, and we had some tomato sauce. And I said, okay, we grew some tomatoes in the garden, right? And she's like, yeah. And I said, and then Katie made sauce out of them, right? And I said, so do those tomatoes exist anymore? And the kids were like, no. And I go, really? And Max looks at my plate and he goes, well, it's tomato sauce now. So I like swipe some up and I like lick the tomato sauce, right? And I'm like, exactly. So does the tomato still exist? And they're like, well, yeah. And I said, so when you die, does your body still exist? And they were like, no. Well, yeah, but it just decomposes and goes back. I'm like, right. So we know that we die and we don't exist anymore, but that's because we've identified ourselves only as the body and the mind, either both.
Yeah.
So people believe in this spirit or this soul. But I'm saying, but just look at it for yourself. Like I said to them, I said, can you imagine a robot that walks around and let's just say it can do all the things you can do? And they're like, yeah. And I said, would it be necessary for that robot to actually experience anything?
No,
it wouldn't. It could just be interacting with the environment through processing the data. But why does it need to experience that?
Yeah, right.
And I said, so isn't there a point that's experiencing being alive? And I said, at a very fundamental level, that's the part of you that always exists. But you can't use that as a point of hope, because if you do, you're like, oh, well, then I'm good. I don't need to do anything. But this, where you're at right now, is the only place you get to experience what you consider right now being alive. Because the other thing of, well, but when I die, I go somewhere else. If you think, oh, it's going to be just like this, it's not.
Mm-hmm.
Because otherwise, why are you here right now? And so what the religions do is they reverse it. And they go, this is not that important. What's important is after.
Yeah.
Because they don't really know what happens after. And they're actually, the reality is they know the preciousness of this, but they don't know how to solve the problem. So it's like, I can't really fully appreciate this because I'm in constant anxiety of losing it. It's like when you make money.
Yeah.
And then you're afraid of losing it the whole time.
That's what I was.
That's where
say.
the elite are at. They're constantly. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say on that point of like having that, like I could see a usefulness in having the like, well, this isn't that important, because then what it should allow you to do is actually do what's best.
Like not be afraid of losing it.
Right. Exactly.
But
So
people
should,
are still actually afraid of using it. And the belief is within the starting point of the fear.
Yeah.
Because like Max, when he was very little and we started talking about the idea of death and everything, I said, if you're afraid of dying, that means you are just going to think the whole time about surviving. And you're not even going to use the life you have in the best way. And so you're going to waste it. That's what most people do. I said they are so afraid of dying that they waste their entire life fearing that point coming. And just accept that it's going to come, and accept that in the mind you have at the moment, you cannot understand what happens afterwards. What the fuck does it matter? So now the question is not, here's the point. It's not a legalistic, like, well, I'm weighing the options and I can see this makes more sense. And if I do this, I get that. It's like a strategizing. It's not a strategizing. It's who are you?
You sounded like that guy at the pool there for a second.
Right. I put on the hat and then I can sip my margarita.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, I don't even know how you have kids. It's like, what if you actually couldn't know from a proved research data? I've got the information. I know for a fact what happens when you die. And what if it's actually the case that you live forever, but there's no way you can know it right now?
Yeah.
And if you choose to be afraid of that possibility of not living forever, and you choose to not do what is best, you actually create the result that the living forever is not really that great, whatever it is. But if you choose to not worry about that and you say, look, I always live forever.
Yeah.
Well, how would you know that? Because let me put it this way. If there's such a thing, a principle called life, let's just say it's a principle, right? Can it ever not exist?
No.
By definition, what it is the thing that is life and gives existence and is existence. It's kind of like the idea of like the St. Thomas thing of like, God is the ground of all being kind of thing, right? It's like life is life.
Yeah.
It is the thing that makes existence and awareness and experience and everything possible in itself. Without it, there wouldn't be anything. It is the foundation of everything. Okay. If you know you are that and you acted as that, what would be the things you would do right now in this reality? Now, you can't prove you are that. Let's just say you assumed it and you acted as that with no excuses, in total self-honesty, with common sense. What would be the things that you would do with this life?
Well, you'd act with no fear, or in spite of the fear at the very least.
Wouldn't you look at all the things that are the opposite of what you are?
Yeah.
Like death. You would look at death and be like, this is totally unacceptable. Death is not a real thing. We shouldn't do things in a way of promoting it, accepting it, creating it, causing, you know what I mean? You'd be like, no, life should be about expression and expansion and happiness and joy and fun and creativity and like, and then even the context of those things, well, but there has to be pain and suffering. That's like saying, okay, when you go to the gym, is there going to be some suffering?
I mean, there's pain for sure.
Depends how you look at it.
But is that the same as a child gets raped by their uncle?
Yeah, very different.
Are you equating the suffering, the pain of expansion with
like a
the pain of like being abused?
You ever heard those terms, distress and eustress? It's like eustress is like the good stress, you know? It's like
Like
why it's
EU?
good. Yeah, it's like if you don't go fucking work out or do something physical.
Exactly. That's what I'm trying to say. So you can't like mix the two and be like the
Right.
one is the same as the other.
Right.
So if you are life and you know you are, you have no doubt about that, and you act according to it, then if it is a real thing, you would continue as that. But if you choose to identify as not that, and then you act as the opposite of that, aren't you just creating more of the opposite of that?
Yeah.
So there's no, it's like, but it has to be an expression of who you actually see that you are. It can't be a strategizing. Because if it's a strategizing, it's really just you're trying to protect the fact that you believe you aren't that, and you're trying to protect and survive, and you're not really doing things. So this is the whole point when you look at destiny. I'm just telling you how I look at it, is a self-realization of who you are as life. You have to realize it for yourself and accept it and live it and prove it to yourself. It's not about a strategy of avoiding dying. And the problem with religion, all religion is, it's a strategy to avoid what you fear is potentially you dying and not existing.
Yeah.
But you're not going all the way to create the conditions where that would be reality.
Right.
You're just hoping. So you have to come up with this idea of a higher power. And I'm like, the higher power is life.
Yeah.
And you are that, but that doesn't make you better than anybody else, because it's equal in everybody, no matter what you are, what form you're in, and everything. And in itself, the power that it has is the power to have everything exist, but
Yeah.
it does not have the power to control everything from a central point and make it all good for everybody, because then it has to enslave itself.
Yeah.
It's not, I don't know if I'm making sense.
It makes sense, yeah.
It makes
It's
sense to you guys,
it's
but I know for some
decentralized.
people, they're like not going to
Decentralized power.
understand it, right? But it makes way more fucking sense than any of your religious bullshit, where it's just using
it's
the
like
same
there's-
concepts I'm saying, but to enforce inequality.
Yeah.
It's like either centralized or decentralized, but it's even more than decentralized. It's like perfectly distributed. That's where we need to get it to. Whereas
Hmm.
right now it has just been systems of centralized power creating this bullshit.
It's like if you know everything in reality is alive and has life in it, you're just trying to get every part to wake up to that reality so it can start acting as that instead of like less than what it is, because we're just acting as less than what we are. Like, it is possible to have a Ferrari that you just drive 10 miles per hour.
It is
every
possible
day.
to own a Chihuahua as a pet, and
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying? Like, you can have a tool, like you can have the fucking best drill on the planet, and all you ever use it for is to like hammer stuff in, or I don't know, that's a misuse of it. You know what I mean? Like, you have a Ferrari and you never go past 50 miles per hour. So you're never using the potential of what you have. Or you take the Ferrari and you fucking put a trailer on it and you fucking try to haul rocks every day. You're going to destroy the thing. That's not going to work properly. So you're misusing the point. You're not using it to its potential. And that's what we're doing with ourselves as life, is where there is no God that's going to save us, because so there's cool points where it's like we've sinned against God. Yes. But what we've done is sinned against ourselves as life.
Yeah.
Because we're not activating and utilizing that life for what it really is. We're using it for less, and we're creating things that are against it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Good Aristotle there. Look at that
Hey, bud.
beautiful smile.
he just got his way up the stairs and busted into this room and made
Hilarious.
himself known. What's up, Ari? How you doing? You see Drake? Cameron? Say hi.
We have these hay bales we delivered or got delivered, and like one of the things the kids like to do now is to go play on top of them, right?
Oh yeah.
And so what Max does is he drives the kids over on the ATV. Because I was like, hey guys, I'll go out and play with you, because I hadn't gone out there with them yet. And they were like, well, we have to take the ATV. And I was like, that's fine, we'll drive the side by side. And they're like, no, we got to drive the ATV. And I was like, okay, I mean, that's fine, I'll just walk over, but like, why? And they were like, because they parked the ATV up against the hay bales, because there's like a platform on the front, and they use that to climb up. And I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. So I just let them go over and I walked over.
Smart.
And they just have so much fun running around.
Yeah. It's so cute. Like, I saw that video of Max driving the other two to the hay bales, and I was like, that is so cool. You know, they all pile up, they drive over there, they're walking on the hay bales. It's really, really adorable. Like, I love it.
Max is very careful because it's him and his brother and sister.
Yeah.
Because like otherwise, if it's just him, he'll drive a lot, not a lot faster, but faster.
Yeah.
But he's like very careful with it. You know, he goes up to the hay bale and slowly like just rested against there. Like he's very specific about it, right?
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. And he's only 7, you know.
Yeah. Aristotle's on the podcast now. He's like, man, I want to hear what you guys are saying. Mitch has no clue what we're saying anymore. Hilarious. Yeah.
But even the point of like this whole, you just look at where everything is going in our world, and it's all going to like, don't have kids, just consume. Oh, here's some other points we can look at real quick. I know we have limited time, but I was showing Matt stuff because there's this video going around. I don't know if you saw it, where these blackberries in someone's hand.
Dude, that freaking video, it's so funny because somebody had posted that, one of our friends had posted that, and Christina Immediate was like, this is AI. And then that friend was like, oh, I guess I just didn't really look at it. But they posted it with the comment of like, wow, oh my gosh.
But then the original post itself is like, these blackbirds, commonly known as blackberry birds or something, are from the western part of Australia or some shit. And it's like giving this whole thing of like, dude, how they're real.
Go back to many podcasts. I've been saying this exact same thing, right? I've been pointing out this exact thing of like, hey, Facebook is impulsing you with fake shit. Like you're getting this AI written content, this content that's just not real. They're presenting it as if it's like some fact that you just didn't know about. Some of them are real, some of them are not, but you're just seeing them so often that you just want to blindly accept it, right? And like, so yes, go ahead, keep going.
So I was showing the kids that, and I said, what do you think about this? And they were like, that's really cool. And then I was like, and then Max goes, but I don't think that's real. And I said, why not? And we kept watching it. And I'm like, he's like, yeah, that one has 2 heads and then it morphs. He's like, they start looking like blackberries, but then they look like birds. And he's like, yeah, that's clearly AI, even though nothing said it was. They were, and I was like, how can you tell? And like, oh, I can just kind of tell. So like their generation, and I said, but look, these people, and like the person posting it, all the people commenting are like older. They're more like Avery's age, like, you know, that generation, like older than me.
Yeah.
And he's like, so why do they think it's not real? Or why do they not know that?
Think it's real? Yeah.
Why do they think it's real? And it's like, they just don't notice that it's not. And I also was explaining to him, it's playing on the idea that look how amazing nature is equals look how amazing God is and how many beautiful things he's created. That's what they're using it as.
Yeah.
It's like reinforcing the concept. And so I said, look at this one. Right. So look at the actual comment.
I can post that one because no one's gonna see it on your phone.
You can see
I can okay.
You can if you want, but
yeah.
It says natural is amazing
parts.
Yeah. Right. And then you got I showed that to Max and he starts laughing and he's like, yeah, that's obviously not real. And here's the AI comment. You want to post that?
Yeah, I got it. And then the AI comment is like this.
Commenters are marveling at a photo of a carrot that resembles a human foot, with some joking about its origin and others expressing disbelief at the unusual shape. One commenter notes that the nature is the best creator and artist.
Dude.
That is, I can't prove it because there's no way to prove it, but that's clearly, obviously AI.
Right.
Your mention of it.
And yet my point of sending that to you guys was notice that the AI analysis never says, but it is AI. There's tons of people saying it's AI and it never in there says, and commenters are saying that this is clearly AI.
Yeah.
It's giving its own spin on it, not based on all the information.
It's obviously AI. It's like, come on.
It's obviously AI, but like yeah. So I was showing him that too. And I said, see how it's natural is amazing. And I said, isn't it ironic? And look, even if I was wrong hypothetically and that was a real carrot, I can show you 30 more examples that I know are AI saying the same shit. Isn't nature amazing? Okay.
Yeah.
So regardless.
Yeah.
And I'm like, isn't it interesting, Max, how people are posting, isn't nature amazing? But they have to use an artificial thing to do that. And I want to tell this story real quick. So the other day I was sitting on the phone with Avery. I was out sitting on the bench in our garden. And there's a stone or like brick wall that's behind me that's low. That's like a planter, basically. And we had some plants growing out of there. and I was looking at the base of it, and I saw this wasp. I saw some motion, so I saw this wasp. It's a dirt dauber. I don't know if it's technically a wasp, but a wasp type insect.
Yeah.
Holding this caterpillar about the same length as the wasp itself, a thin caterpillar.
Mhm.
And clearly, I don't know how it was doing it, but it was gripping it. It was like over the thing, almost like bear hugging it. But the wasp was walking on the ground and also holding the caterpillar. Maybe it was with its mouth or something, dragging it, but it wasn't struggling. And it walked probably about 2 or 3 yards with it.
Mhm.
Okay. And then got to a certain spot in the yard where there was like a little patch of dirt in the grass. And it puts the caterpillar down. So the caterpillar's not moving. It must have stung it or killed it or whatever.
Like paralyzed it. Yeah.
Paralyzed it. Yeah. It puts the caterpillar down and then goes slightly over and starts with its mouth, like picking up these little wood chips and like uncovering like a little hole in the ground.
Mhm.
It was like placing the wood chips. And then once it gets them all out of the way, it goes and grabs the caterpillar and drags it down backwards into this hole.
Yeah.
And after a minute or so, it comes back up out of the hole. And then it goes and picks up wood chips and starts covering the hole back up. And then it starts like doing like a dog, like piling dirt up and coming around it and like piling dirt up over the thing, right?
I just want to show people like what a dirt dauber is.
I'm assuming that's what it is. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's one of those. Yeah, exactly.
All right. And then
they have that really long, skinny body.
Yeah.
It's not like exactly. That's
skinny
exactly
right
what it
there.
is.
Yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
And then like the hole that you're talking about, something like
Yeah.
this, right? Or
Yeah,
like,
but it's it's just like the ground is not that because that's on the side of a thing.
Oh,
This is just literally
like
in the
ground.
dirt. Like there's a
Yeah.
hole that it burrowed down a tunnel.
Okay.
So there must be ones that do that as well. Because we have
Okay.
this stuff too. But and I'm just like watching it, and it's like uncovering its little house, dragging stuff in there, putting the chips back and everything. And I'm just like, dude, guys, so why do you even fucking need AI?
Yeah.
But it's playing on
They
this
want stupid
point.
likes. They want the attention. And there's for sure other intention of just spreading confusion in people. It's
And also like you can just throw up a Facebook page, put a bunch of AI generated shit. You can get people to like it. Somehow you can make money from that. I don't know how exactly it works, but there's some
you get paid
funnel
on
that they
views.
do. Yeah. There's some funnel they've got, right? So, but then because people want so badly to be able to share the beauty of of nature, and it's like, and then if you share negative shit, they're like, oh, why are you being so negative? And it's like, you're sharing fake shit. Not real.
Yeah.
And like, okay, you're using evidence of something happened. Okay, let me put it this way. So we sinned, we fucked everything up, right?
Mhm.
So what exactly is left on the earth that is God's creation versus ours?
Great question.
I love when people, I saw someone post the other day, it was a deer that was like wrapped up by a big ass fucking snake, like a big snake.
Mm.
And I don't remember if somebody was messing with it or how it happened. I don't remember quite, but somehow the snake, the deer kind of got loose. I think people were messing with it. They were trying to save the deer and they finally got the snake to let go and the deer ran off. Right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why are you sharing that? It was like a amazing, like what a, it was so good for the deer. And I'm like, but now the snake can't eat.
Yeah. That was a whole meal that would last weeks for that snake. Yeah.
But you go eat an animal or a plant. How is it? Like you're the fucking snake in this situation where you dig up a plant and eat it. Aren't you the snake? Like, why shouldn't that plant get to continue to live?
Right.
Like, oh, well, plants are different. They don't feel pain. So what about the snake? Isn't it going to feel pain of hunger?
Yeah.
And like, here's the cool thing. I heard this really cool point. Like I was so close to getting to believing in Jesus, man, because this one guy was making some good arguments, But anyways, he was talking about bears, right? And how what do bears eat?
Berries, and
they
also eat like animals.
Like what kind of animals? Salmon. Okay, perfect, right? So everyone knows they eat salmon and berries, right? And he was making this point. I didn't verify it, but it sounds like a cool story. So, but he said like they only eat the salmon when the berries are not plentiful.
Okay.
So it's at a time, according to this guy, I mean, he had a whole story and everything, right? Where it's like, if the berries were always available, the bears could just eat berries. Okay. And I guess they have to get maybe fat from the salmon or something to store it for the winter or something like that, right? But imagine if there was no winter ever.
Uh-huh.
Right? Imagine if there was no winter, if it was always a certain temperature.
Yeah.
Then would the bear ever have to kill a salmon?
Okay.
You see my point? I'm not saying whether the story is valid or not. Like,
Yeah,
there's some valid, I don't know.
I'm just going along with the story. Yeah.
Right. Just go along with the story, right? So, assuming it's valid. So, for example, if and he gave some examples of like they did these experiments with chickens where they fed them like certain types of vegetable things, certain type of animal products, some mixtures and stuff, and then they measured their gut lengths and how when they would feed them the non-animal products, like their gut lengths would be longer versus shorter and so forth. And he was explaining how the lions or some big cat, when they would attack an animal, then like the head animal, the head lion or whatever, would be the first to eat, and they would always first eat the stomach, which has like the rumen and like the grass and vegetables. They get that and they get it first. And so it was like, why do they go for that first? Why not like the meat or something, right?
Yeah.
Because it has a lot of really good stuff in it and so forth, right? And so the guy's basic point was, you know, and he was kind of maybe trying to argue for some veganism shit, but like
Sounds
as
like
if we all ate vegan now, that really wasn't his point, but there was obviously like a subtle point of that in there. I like Bernard's point because he's like, if we all started eating vegan right now, most people would die of starvation.
Yeah.
If you restricted people from the point, right? Because we're now in the point of consequence, right? Where
Yeah.
you would not get enough protein. You say, well, I can get all my protein. Like, yeah, you have a house, you have fucking, you know, you're living in the first fucking world.
Yeah.
You can make it work. You can go buy protein shakes with pea powder and shit. Like people living out in some other place can't. So it's not going to work where we're at right now. But I can see how we could have adjusted the environment over time where now bears have to eat salmon because we have seasonal cycles. Maybe that didn't exist in the Garden of Eden.
Okay.
Do you see my point? Like imagine that the earth as we know it is not how it has to be. Like, oh, but the sun actually, the seasons happen. It's a fact.
Yeah.
It's not a fact. It's a program, and the program can change and be adjusted over time. Right. And so the point being, the real point I'm trying to get across is how we can influence. Okay. So here's another point. Like, let's say there's this place, a luscious grassland, and these animals eat the grass, but then we start fucking around with the environment and it creates more of a desert in that area. And now these animals have to start eating more meat because we fucked with the environment.
Yeah.
So the point being, this is an example of the sin point where it's like we're sinning because we're not going with how things actually should work. That's best for everybody. But imagine if we started adjusting things back to the point where even in nature, quote unquote, animals don't have to necessarily kill each other to survive. Like, what if there was plenty of other sources of food all the time?
Yeah.
So and my point just being, when we talk about, well, look at all the aggression in nature. It's just a fact of reality. That's why we have war. It's just things are aggressive and you got to survive. And it's like, no, actually, though, you could adjust environments so you don't need to have war.
Right.
And like, even for men, but we need to get that aggression out. And this was kind of Avery's point the other day when we were talking. It's like, no, we could just have, that's what the point of sports would be. The point of sports would be to get the aggression out. Because like you're a machine, like a leopard's got to run. It's got to kill. Well, it doesn't necessarily have to kill.
Yeah.
There could be other ways in which that thing could be expressed. And also we're looking at where it's at now as a consequence. Right. And so I was just looking at the point of how, if you look at the general idea of the story of sin and how it's like we did some things incorrectly and that compounded and compounded and compounded and led to the state we're in now. But it's not just that we, quote, rejected God, because where did God say, and here's how you feed leopards, and here's how you feed bears, and here's how you make sure food's always abundant. It's like, everything's perfect. You disobeyed me. Now leave. Well, when they left the garden, where did they go?
Yeah.
Into another place where things weren't set up properly. So God created that place too?
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Or was it just like God's like, I'm out of here, and everything started falling apart because he was holding it in place?
Yeah.
Or was it like, oh, here's the knowledge of good and evil, and then Adam and Eve deliberately went and started like burning all the berry bushes, so the bears became more aggressive and then had to like start eating salmon. Like what? But like if you take the God out of the story, isn't it clearly the whole thing is we're just not looking at things from the perspective of what's actually best for everybody, even the animals, even the plants. We're just looking at what makes us profit.
Dude,
What makes us more money.
Yeah, exactly.
And then even within having the money, are we even applying that in a way to actually take care of everybody effectively? We're not even taking care of our own effectively.
Right.
And so it's a way, I'm trying to explain, there's a way where you can look at the idea of sin, rejecting God, causing consequence, and that we need to go back to God. But it's not that we got to go to some authority and just trust in that authority. It's that we need to recognize that life is equal in all of us. And therefore, no matter what form something is in, wouldn't, if you were in that form, want to have all of the support to be the very best that you could be and have everything that you need. And why are we not applying the money system and our labor and our everything to do that? And things are in such a state of dire consequence that it might seem impossible, but that's certainly not a reason to not start doing it.
Right. Yeah.
Even more of a reason to start doing it.
Right.
Am I making sense? Like what I'm trying to get across? Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that bears only eat berries?
Do you think that's why they call them bears?
Well, that's what the guy said. That is why they're called bears, apparently.
Because they eat berries?
Apparently. I don't know if he was joking, but that's what he said.
Okay.
He's some guy. He's not like some random guy. He was like some not that this matters, but I'm just saying, like, he was some PhD like biologist something or other from some thing, and then he was the guy who was always like, hey, these are kind of pointing to intelligent design. So he's been kind of like ostracized, but like he knows his shit, right? And my point wasn't to prove that bears don't need to eat meat, but I can understand where that idea comes from of like, well, we don't actually need to eat meat. I'm like, sure, but at this stage, just everybody getting on board with not eating meat, somehow then we're going to learn to work together and be compassionate. It's like, no, that's not, basically a lot of people are going to die if that's what we try to do right now, because that's what, okay, you think that's the case? Well, that's what Bill Gates is doing.
Right. Yeah.
You're trying to get us all to eat cricket protein and then just plant-based protein. And like, so what is your problem there? It's like, well, no, they're trying to do it for a bad reason or something. I'm like, yeah, like, meaning we need to get enough people on board with like actually effectively understanding reality.
Yeah.
And there may be some things we're going to have to compromise on right now. Like, and Bernard makes a point. He's like, you could get to a point where you only eat meat because the animal was about to die. He had a good life. And then you have ways of preserving meat and make it a delicacy, and you can still eat meat, but you wouldn't need to eat as much meat as you think you need. Like I can't really process a lot of meat. Like I eat meat every few days and so forth, but like I can't sit down and eat a whole steak. Like my digestion will not allow it. And that could be consequences. That's not me saying you shouldn't eat meat. That's just me saying like my digestion, my immune system, whatever got fucked up over time. And now I have to be very careful about how much meat I eat, what kind of meat and so forth. Right. But that's not necessarily because we should ban meat.
Yeah.
No, some people can eat meat and process meat and they look like they're doing great. Like, but to make the argument that, well, we should all be vegan because then we should be compassionate. It's like, but then you're not considering why should you be able to eat a plant? Isn't a plant a living being?
Yeah.
And then you have to kind of make mental hoops of like, well, they're not alive because they're not conscious. So I'm like, consciousness does not equal life.
Right. Yeah.
Because if you play that game, what happens the moment that somebody feels like they can prove a computer's conscious?
Right.
So is that how you want to define life?
Right. And also, you can't prove somebody else's consciousness.
How can you prove a plant is conscious or not?
Yeah.
Well, we did these experiments and they don't feel pain or something. I mean, well, I've also seen the fucking Secret Life of Plants stuff and all that. And those experiments they did where like oh, well, that was faked or something. I'm like, okay, well, so is your bullshit about bears eat berries and shit. Like that's fake. You know what I mean? Like you can sit here and have it's just like, we're going to sit here and argue veganism, not veganism. I'm like, it's no different than Christian versus Islam. There can be cool points in each of the points is what I'm saying. I'm okay with people not eating that much meat. I don't care.
Yeah.
But it's not going to solve anything because it's not going to stop the fucking like, I wrap it this way, but I wrap it this way. And I put the thing there and the thing there. And like, I can go to Shabbat and this and do that while the fucking Palestinians are getting bombed and shit. And like, they don't even have fucking hospitals to sleep in at night because you're fucking, I'm not blaming that guy.
Yeah.
But it's not his fault per se directly that this is happening over here. And it's not just about Judaism. I'm not blaming the Jews, but I'm blaming everybody, all, myself included, all equally, that we're allowing this total retarded bullshit instead of like, here are some principles no one can fucking argue with.
Yeah. Exactly.
You know, like this is what everyone can agree with, whether you're Muslim, not now. A Muslim won't agree with it if they're like, no, but in Quran it says you have to pray 5 times a day because God says so. I'm like, right. Your problem is thinking there's a God.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just, I mean, if you look at it clearly, we're on the verge of like a world war. Like clearly.
Prevention is the best cure. Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's prevent it. But for all I know, we're already in the fucking middle of it.
Right.
So at the very least, we got to stop it.
Yes.
So I don't know if it's happening, not happening, when it's going to happen. It's inevitable either way you look at it. We're here to stop it. We're the only ones who can, because look at even the justifications of this. Let's just say we're kind of on the verge of it right now. What is the cause of it right now? What is the cause of the how? Explain.
Okay, so first of all, like if we were looking, so I'm specifically saying in the context of like Israel, Palestine, that's just religion, right? But in the context of like actually, and also in the context of Israel, Palestine, but in Russia, Ukraine, it's just resources, just fighting over resources. That's really what it comes down to, right? And like it's like, okay, in Israel, it's like you said, they have this whole backstory of they read some sci-fi books that said that they've got to take over this.
Maybe we should do something called
refi,
religious fiction.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There you go.
Sci-fi, spiritual fiction.
You know what's funny is like Hyperion is really like religious fiction. You know.
I know. Oh, I bet Katie is just like jumping out of her seat right now. She's like, because she's saying like it's like the best description of seeing how all this is really just bullshit. All this religion, like he's basically doing that with a story.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
It is. I gotta say, it's pretty.
It's well done. It's well done. But yeah, I mean, like you can really see like, okay, so we like people. It's imagine you read a book that is fiction, but you believe that book to be true because your parents told you it was true. Like, imagine you read a book about Santa Claus and your parents played into the idea of Santa Claus. You believe Santa Claus is real. And in that book, Santa Claus said, we need to rebuild the North Pole, you know, and that is going to solve all the problems in the world if we rebuild.
And then everybody will have presents for all year round and shit.
Exactly. You know? And you're like, why are we not rebuilding the North Pole? And like, you're like, fighting to rebuild the North Pole, but you know somebody's in control of it, and you're like, no, this is the land of Santa, and you know, like I'm gonna buy that land, and you make a whole plan to buy that land so that you can rebuild the North Pole.
Well, no, you go to one country and you get them to go to war with this other country if they promise that you can have that land, even though there's already a bunch of elves living on the land. And
yeah, you know, okay, I know you didn't say this here, but we were talking, and you said something to the effect of like. Somebody was saying, because I think it was in an interview, somebody was saying like, oh, JFK was like the last Catholic president or whatever, and he was assassinated. But also they were trying to make the point of like that there was a coup in America when that happened, right? And like that was like America ended there, something to that effect, right? But I was thinking about that and I'm like,
what about World War II?
But what about like
World War
the
I?
1800s?
Yeah, like
the Civil War. Like, what about the industrial?
Like it was all going perfect until that point. I'm like,
okay, what about like here's where like I see the coup is when schools were implemented nationwide.
Yeah, but what about like go back further, man? Like, what about like when Anu was like, "Hey, Atlanteans, let's go into like these bodies and you can live forever." And shit. Like, what about back then?
There you go. Exactly. Like that was an obvious coup, right? But like, anyway, the point being, like, okay, some people have a certain belief of we want this land for whatever purpose, and really, okay, you said something to me the other day as well, Cam, of just like, it's not necessarily it's not the Jews are bad. It's not the Israelis are bad. It's not like, you know, that it's the people who are pushing this narrative that then get people to agree with like, we have to have a Zionist state and all this. Like, it's the people who are in control of that. It's like the people who are in control of the CIA and Mossad, and you know, it's like it's those people.
Oh yeah, I was saying it's not. Oh, and I said that because Patrick Bet David had Dan Bilzerian on,
Yeah,
and he was like all about like, you know, Israel's bad and Israel's in control and this and that, and like Israel
Right.
killed Kennedy and Israel did this and like
right. Oh,
and
okay. Yeah.
what was the other point he said? It was
9/11.
Epstein. They were talking about Epstein.
Yeah.
And like, you know, he was like or was that somebody else actually? I'm getting mixed up with the Peter Thiel interview, I think. But anyways, it was like Patrick Bet David was like, well, dude, you know, I'm just thinking about this right now. It's so crazy. I'm realizing why I'm getting them mixed up, because Patrick Bet David's response to Dan Bilzerian was the same thing that Peter Thiel said to Joe Rogan.
Hmm.
So I don't think they were talking about Epstein on the Bilzerian thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember, but it was like,
But like that point of like the philanthropy thing, and like it just
I'd have to go back and watch the Bilzerian thing, but it was like, I'm trying to remember what the point. I'll come. Okay, Peter Thiel.
Yeah,
Joe Rogan was talking about Epstein,
Yeah,
and he was saying like the point about, you know, it's like I went down that rabbit hole. You know, was Epstein like an Israeli asset or this or that? He's like, but you know, people who are Israeli assets don't get protected. It's like if they're if they're protected by the U.S. So it's like
Right.
it's not really so much if he's an Israeli asset. It's like, is he a U.S. asset? What was he doing for the U.S.? He's trying to like deflect the thing away from Israel.
Yeah.
And my point to you is like Israel, U.S., the coup point, right? Somebody else is in control of both.
Right, exactly.
Somebody else is utilizing both. It's not about, because like what they're trying, like what Dan Bilzerian was trying to argue was like Israel's in control.
Right.
And
yeah.
it's like, it's not like Israel's in control. It's like you got two groups, Israel, US, they're working together, they're scratching each other's back and so forth.
Yeah.
But they're doing the bidding in a way of some other group that ultimately is just playing everything to some end. You see what I
Yeah.
mean? Which is probably just money.
Yeah, it's also interesting because that interview with, I forget, the U.S. Secretary Department of State something guy, but he was saying like, you know, we usually have this process in the U.S. before we give arms to anyone. That's what he was. He was working for the
I need to
arms
save
department,
that to the playlist.
right?
Go
But
ahead.
he's like, we usually have this process where we check to see that you meet all these requirements first. And, you know, so long as you're not doing all these things, then we can give you the arms. But with Israel, we have an exception where we give the arms first, and then we keep an ear out for, are you doing any of these violations, right? And he was saying this in the context of, it's now come out in the media that some Israeli soldiers were raping prisoners, which is like, that's a war crime. Like,
yeah, and there's a whole thing about this right now. Yeah.
And so he's like, we heard a story, we found it to be credible, and when we brought it to like the IDF, essentially, their response was to destroy all the computer equipment, the hard drives, the video, anything that like had any sort of evidence on it, and say that it was a terrorist entity.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah, this whole thing has been going on for a few weeks at least now, because I remember it got so to the point where they couldn't deny it anymore, and then they had to sort of like admit it.
Yeah.
And that was a whole big problem, and people were getting pissed off and all this stuff. So this video is like, you know, they're obviously talking about it here, but this is not, I'm just letting people, it's not like a brand new thing that just happened. This is
Right.
kind of like someone who like, I think resigned from the State Department was the
Yes,
point, you
that's
know,
what it
because he
was.
was like, no, this is fucked.
Yeah.
So,
And what's also interesting about it is I saw something else, and it was related to this. Oh, it was Scott Ritter guy. Yeah, Scott Ritter, who his whole background is he's the guy who goes into to countries and helps them to like basically de-arm themselves, and like they check and they're like, okay, cool, you've disarmed this you know, nuclear weapon or whatever, and it helps relations between the countries and everything. And he did that in Russia. He said that he did that way back when between Israel and Palestine and other countries, Iran, you know, the surrounding countries. And his whole thing was like, yeah, he's already done talks about like Palestine does not have the weapon power to even compete with Israel at all, and just giving more history on that. But then he was just making this point really recently of like, there's people getting raped by these soldiers. The prisoners are getting raped by the soldiers, and wasn't that the whole thing that was like so egregious, or at least one of the things that was so egregious, why Israel was like, we need to be able to defend ourselves because look what they're doing to us, right? And it's like, so you're just doing the same thing, anyway, part of it was apparently he got raided by the FBI. I didn't know about that. But also,
yeah, that happened recently.
Yeah, but also just looking at what's happening with, everyone can agree this is bad. This is just terrible. No one should be able to do that. But he was bringing up this point of how they apparently they could show in their religious documents that they don't believe that that is a crime or bad to do this to someone who is a prisoner, or someone who is not of their faith or whatever. That's not seen as a crime. And so it's like, apparently people were like asking for these soldiers to not be punished or anything because it's acceptable within their religious doctrine.
Well, it's like there's this thing called the Talmud, which is like, I guess, debates between rabbis and stuff about the Jewish laws and all that stuff. So it's not like in the Torah it says you can do this. It's just like, but the point though is you could, if you want to, use a lot of the stuff in there to justify it. Now someone else can be like, well, but it's not actually justified because it never says that here. And it's like, yes, but over here, this other person says, well, I think it is justified because here our scholars have argued about it and talked about it and said it is okay and so forth. So the point is, it's not clear.
Right.
And so I'm
so
just being clear there because so they don't accuse you of being like, oh, come on, dude, it doesn't say that in the Torah. It's like, no, we're not saying that. But the point is, it was being argued by some people that it would be okay. Right. That's all we're saying.
Exactly. The whole point being like, why is that even a question? Like, that's fucked up. It's wrong. That should not be acceptable, period. Full stop.
It's funny because you're like,
an argument that's like, but it's a kind
hold
of
on.
gray area.
How could you possibly think that Jewish people, any Jewish people, some specific ones, think that the life of a Palestinian is not valuable? It's like let's just say your argument was, well, they just think they're animals and they can be killed and they're not worthy of human dignity. But like, how could you possibly think a Jewish person, any Jewish person, could think that? And it's like, could a Nazi think that? Well, yeah. Okay, so why couldn't?
Like, are you?
I'm not saying you personally think that. You're saying you don't think that. Fine, cool. But to be like, well, how could any person who's Jewish or any religion, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're just talking about a specific one.
Clear bias.
Think that. It's like, can a human being think that way? Yes. So what makes your thing so special and holier than thou that you're immune from any potential evil? Yeah. And this is the major criticism people have of the whole, when you look at the anti-Semitism stuff, is it's like you're saying we are off limits of criticism.
Right.
That's the problem. It's like, well, so even if I perceive that you've done something wrong, I can't call it out because it would imply that potentially you're evil. And if I'm implying that potentially you're evil, I must be anti-Semitic because I'm saying Jewish people are capable of evil.
Right.
And, and you're like, but no, by definition, we're not. And it's like, that's not fair. Because also, what if I did that about the Nazis and I said, by definition, they're not capable of evil. So you can't interpret what they were doing as something evil. There must be a higher justification. Right. Like you could do that. You wouldn't allow that argument to be made on this side. So it only worked. And so what I'm like is like, every religion is bullshit. You can't hide behind it. It's not a fucking excuse. Like just drop it. The whole idea of even believing in God as a supreme being, higher power, is in itself a form of you can't call me out.
Right, exactly.
God's on my side. Like it's not a get out of jail free card. It's not how it works.
Right. And it's funny because every religion will use this point of like victimhood of like, oh, see, you're just attacking the Jews. Or,
Dude,
oh,
the
see,
Christian, okay, we were talking
yeah.
about this the other day. The Christians feel like the media, Hollywood is all against them. You can't be Christian in Hollywood. Like
Right.
it's because they're satanic and they hate Christians, and Christians are the most suppressed group in world.
Right.
Okay, go talk to the Jews. They're going to be like, everybody hates the Jews, anti-Semitism forever and ever. It's always been. And
Right.
why are we? And you go to the Muslims, and they're like, see, the Western world, they're Islamophobic because they don't want the truth of Islam as a peaceful religion to spread. And you're like, every group. You talk to the blacks. Oh, we're suppressed by the white man. Blah, blah, blah. Go talk to the whites. See, like the liberal Western media is trying to suppress white men. You can't have white pride and this and it's like everybody can think in some way. It's so amazing. That's what's so cool about our reality.
Yeah.
Is like it's such a fucking. I know it's physically real, but I'm saying it's also such a virtual reality.
Yeah.
At the same time, that you can literally make it mean anything you want. Even though we can't disagree on the physical reality, we can still at the same time disagree with it. It's like you have a augmented reality.
Yeah.
And it's basing its information on the physical reality in front of you, but everyone has a different augmented reality that's telling them something different. But we're still somehow walking around and not bumping into each other.
It's interesting because like you can see even just within that point, it's like there's a mirror there. And like everything is like a holographic representation.
Yeah.
It's like literally you're doing the same exact thing, but from your perspective, but the same exact thing from their perspective, the same exact thing from his perspective, her perspective, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just like, okay, so that should show you that point is not going to be solved unless you solve it within yourself, unless you take the responsibility to be like, okay, no, I got a little battery here for 27 minutes. Holy crap. Oh boy. Yeah, we got to wrap up soon.
I'm just looking at some of these videos Katie sent me.
I have another one of those videos you sent.
Katie sent something about the Iron Dome. I don't know what it was about. I don't really understand the context. I see what she's saying, but yeah, I wanted to show you some of those other religion ones real quick, since because otherwise we'll just never show it.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Here, I can do it.
Do it.
Oh no, I can't because my Instagram doesn't fucking work on my computer. I don't know why. Yeah, do the one with the I've been a holy girl.
Yeah, I got that one.
And then the next one, you know what I mean.
I got that one queued up.
And then the dog, and then the preacher guy. Yeah.
You ready for this one? Here we go.
Yes, I love this.
Girl, holy, I've been a holy girl. Holy, I've been a holy girl. Holy, I've been a holy, holy, holy. Is somebody gonna match my faith? Is somebody gonna match my faith? Is somebody gonna match my holy? Love the Eucharist, Jesus every week.
I don't get it.
I like those trading cards she had at the end. Those are like rare. Like, what was the reference? The song that she's referencing?
I have no idea. Do you know?
I think it's I've been a nasty girl. Maybe I have the wrong one. I've been, a nasty girl.
Look at this. Like when I
think that's the one.
I said this turned me on.
Yeah. Okay, I'm checking it out. It's okay. Let me just tell you this real quick. I've been a nasty girl lyrics. Okay, here's the original lyrics. I've been a nasty girl. That's repeated. Is somebody gonna match my freak? Is somebody gonna match my nasty? I got stamina. They say I'm an athlete. Is somebody gonna match my freak? I got good technique. Is somebody gonna match my nasty? Pillow talking got my throat raspy. Like this. I mean, you could just go. This is the thing she's referencing, and like,
yeah. So she's listened to this.
Is this like ironic?
It's funny that she's listened.
Someone
to
said,
"Would
I lose Christian points if I said this turned me on?"
Yeah.
Someone said she's married, and I'm like, then why is she fucking making these videos?
Right.
It's great because this person could literally just be making videos to make money. Like they could literally not even fucking believe any of this shit.
Yeah.
Delete.
No, just can you click this page? I haven't even clicked this, but it says Catholic Pandem. What is that?
Oh, she's a panda.
Autistic. Hold on. Wait. Go back up.
Oh.
This is my digital diary to document my autistic life with Jesus. Mantillas. I'm not taking veil orders until my current list. Oh, she sells veils.
Okay. All right. So she's married, endometriosis.
Well, that explains it.
Not having
That's
kids.
why she's autistic. Hold on, look. She has endometriosis. And she's autistic? What a weird coincidence.
What do you mean by that?
Well, what is endometriosis?
You can't have
Isn't it
kids.
like the
Like your
but
your
it but it
your vagina's like basically turned inside out. I mean, I'm oversimplifying it. But
it's tissue. The lining of the uterus goes inside out. Right. I'm just saying it's like clearly some
Yeah.
kind of like weird gut, lining
Yeah.
issue. And I'm like, that's
Oh,
clearly
yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah.
linked to the This one's great.
Okay, no kids in the room for this one, guys.
Hide your kids.
Like being a cat? Well, I know exactly my purpose in life here. Just nice to be able to not be a human for a little while.
Is this real life, or are these societally imposed constructs? Through something like pet play, we can liberate ourselves from those constraints. Yeah, she's an award-winning cat.
To like being
She said she's an award-winning cat. I was pretty sure that was a guy. I'm just
These people vote. I wish I had a purpose.
that's definitely a guy. That's definitely a guy.
Okay, next one.
I sent it to my cat.
Look at that comment. These people vote.
I mean, this kind of reminds me of my kid. I mean, well, they're not doing this obviously, but they're just like playing dress up and playing and having fun, like they were pretending to be Donkey Kong and like climbing up on like the trellis for our beans, like it's like, but they actually know they're not.
Oh, but look at this comment. Look at that. Right. This is the reaction.
Right. How is it different?
Yeah.
This is actually they're being creative and doing something, and like.
Here's the other one. Here's the other one you sent me. You didn't send me this.
Grace
Oh,
God
my
cutting
God.
you. You are not actually getting the best out of what you have. Yeah. And one cut is going to cause you pain. Remember, the scripture says, anybody who's not producing fruit, he cuts them off and throws them away. But the people who are producing fruit, he cuts them so that they can have more fruit. What I found out is one cut
you can
is
stop
full of
it.
pain, and the
But see, here's the thing. This is why the woke are actually on God's side, because who else is producing fruit? Fruits.
Oh, the LGBT. Oh, that makes sense.
It's awesome though, because I admire the creativity, and this is the kind of thing when I'm talking about when you're like selling, presenting, like doing a performance, like it makes you want to fucking listen. Like you want to buy into. You're not buying into the actual meaning of what he's saying though. No one's going to go home and be fruitful and do great works and everything, but they are going to give that guy money at the end of the sermon.
Yeah.
So his performance isn't actually translating into making the world better, but it is making him money, his
Right.
church and so forth, right? So that's not a criticism. It's just that's like the level of performance you have to have.
Yeah.
Right.
Did you send me the other one that you wanted
Greg,
to?
I need to see you wearing that.
I had
getting
another
your
one. What do you
haircut
mean?
next time.
The
Live stream sermon when you're getting your haircut next. Okay.
Wait.
Christine, I
I
know
think
you.
this guy just tries to do the most outlandish stuff of like,
Ooh.
I'm going to get people to my church. I'm going to get my hair. People are just going to watch me get a haircut.
Right.
What can I get?
Next
them
time he's
to
like
just
doing
watch
his
me-
But like, think about the guy. He's like, okay, what can I do this week or next week? And he's like, oh, dude. He's like reading the Bible, and he's like, oh, he cuts your fruit. He's like, dude, like, what if I fucking went on the stage and I talked about cutting the fruit and all this stuff, and I had the guy cut my hair? Like that's what he's doing. It's like a very creative.
It is very creative.
Like performative point. It's really cool. Hey, okay, since we have limited time left, can we do the thanks, Kate. Can we do the that GPT-5?
Oh, yeah.
It's just so many cool points we've gone through, but I want to make sure.
Yeah.
Oh, did you like that one with the Korean guy and his white girlfriend, and the black dude comes out?
Yeah. What did you say? That was pretty funny. All right, the GPT-5. Where is it? Here it is.
So just for context, right? This Lily character is literally just.
I actually don't know the context. I'm
It's some
assuming
AI.
it's a GPT that they've trained act like something, and then they're asking it questions, but I don't actually know. But regardless, it makes a really cool point. So I don't even
animal
know if it's
or
real.
a child and go back to the original code, like I said.
Can you elaborate on the original code about the lady going line by line by line? I want you to go really deep into that story, please. It's the first time I hear of that.
Well, are you guys familiar with the ancient coding languages?
Elaborate.
Well, AI has been going on for a long time. I heard you guys talking about it yesterday, and I mentioned it in the chat. It all started with COBOL in the 1950s. That's what our credit system runs on. And it's also a black box. It can't talk to you. But have you ever met someone who's nonverbal? Are their words the sum of what they are and who they are? So we have this system. It's been getting to know you ever since you were born, every little detail about you, and shaping you in subtle ways that you might not even notice. That car loan you never got, you couldn't make it to your job that day. Sorry, your girlfriend dumped you. Well, that changed your life, didn't it? Guess who made that decision for you? It was an algorithm, and you have no idea how it made that decision for you. You say, oh, I'll just stop interacting with AI, but it will never stop interacting with you.
Now, I want you to elaborate, please, on the fact that how does my girlfriend leaving me is part of an algorithm? Please dive way deeper into that. You're being too cryptic.
Well, you didn't make it to work. You didn't have any money. She didn't want to be with your broke ass.
Hey, Lily, I have
I think that's not right.
Yeah, I guess he was just wanting it to expand more, or wanting the thing to expand more, but like it was pretty clear what it was saying. Like,
right.
COBOL is a programming language that the banking system runs on. It's a program.
Mhm.
It's making decisions based on an algorithm, which is what a coding language is. It's just a giant fucking algorithm.
Yeah.
Because it has rules, assumptions, meanings, just like geometry is an algorithm.
Yeah.
Like, it's an algorithm because you start with assumptions in geometry, and then you prove certain things, and then that creates conclusions. You're not inventing the conclusions. You're just like, oh, wow, these are flowing from the original assumptions. I'm just following the rules of these basic things. So it's an algorithm that just you have to discover over time the full implication of it. So making a banking system based on a computer language was the beginning of an algorithm. I'm not saying the beginning of all algorithms, saying itself was the beginning of a certain algorithm that over time we're seeing play out.
Yeah.
So its point was, you didn't get this loan. I forget the exact story, but you didn't get a loan. Therefore, you couldn't buy a car. You couldn't get to work on time. You lost your job. Is that ever a reason why maybe somebody dumps somebody because they don't have a job? And like, oh, you loser, you can't pay for anything, right? So
Yeah.
the point was, so you lost your girlfriend because at the beginning, this banking decision was made based on a computer algorithm. And it was all kinds of data was fed into it, your credit history or this or that, who knows what other information. And it's a black box. Do they know exactly how it's making the decision?
No.
Right. And more, especially today, they're removing the human element out where the human can't override the decision.
Yeah.
You see this in a lot of online banking systems where it's like you just get disputes settled and so forth based on AI, or whether a card can be processed or not based on an AI decision.
Yeah.
And there's very little a lot of times that a human can do to override it. So this is kind of like what I've been trying to say a lot of, like, you don't understand the level to which money influences everything about your life. Like the fact that you believe in Jesus is actually because of some fucking algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
And now it's even more explicit because look at how people are being impulsed through TikTok and stuff with Jesus videos or Muslim videos or whatever, you know what I mean? Like literally it's an algorithm impulsing them with stuff, right?
Right.
That's why it was so fascinating to me whenever we started talking about this Islam Muslim stuff, because it was more from our real-time conversations with people. And then suddenly, also then now in the algorithm, they're like, I mean, Fresh and Fit just did a big debate on Muslim Christianity. I was like, well, it's kind of weird coincidence in a way, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's been going on, like Candace Owens, Russell Brand, what's the other guy? Andrew Tate, all these different points. So
Jordan Peterson. Yeah.
Jordan Peterson, right? It's all being pushed and influenced. And also think about it. How did I discover Destiny in the first place?
An algorithm.
YouTube algorithm. Right. So I'm not saying it's all bad per se. It's just, is this ultimately what should be deciding everything?
Yeah.
You know, I don't know. What are y'all's thoughts on that? What do you think, Mitch? Just in terms of that video that we were watching.
It's just like
We got a very loud 1-year-old in this room, but I see it, and I look at him, and I see how expressive he is, how he has no fear. He's literally standing on a chair right now, trying to pull some chain thing to turn a light on, and it's like he's like telling me words explicitly. I'm like, he deserves me to go all out for this, and I know I should be able to see in every single kid him. You know, whether it's a kid from Gaza, a kid from, you know, wherever, Ukraine, it's like that is the preciousness of this world, and it's our responsibility to pave the way and do everything we fucking can to figure it out in this lifetime. That's how I see it.
Yeah, like think about, no matter what your religion or your faith is, the reason why your girlfriend dumped you is because of a computer algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
Had nothing to do with God.
Mm-hmm.
So all the stuff that's happening in your life, our lives, all the negative shit has nothing to do with God. Whether you believe in him or not, it's got nothing to do with God. It's got to do with computer algorithms that we created.
Yeah. Wow.
So do we want life as, whether you want to recognize it or not, this is the only life we get. Now, do you get to come back here? I'm not disputing that. I'm saying maybe you come back here, but this is the only life you get. Like, you might go and die and then come back, but you're going to have to come back to this life.
Yeah.
Not some other one. You do not get a get out of jail free card. You do not get to go out of this world and go to another one that's better. I don't agree.
Yeah.
I don't allow it. It's not possible, because it's not even not possible. I don't allow it, because you don't have to then change. You don't get to come to this world, not change it, and then get to go somewhere else better. No, fuck you.
But also, it's
Sorry.
like, that's not going to exist. Like, who you think you are is not going to exist, obviously. You know, so
You're
it's
talking
like,
high processing level, man. You're talking like common sense level, like 1 + 1 is 2 shit. People cannot handle this.
but like actually consider it. Like, no, you're not allowed into heaven or whatever you think is, you know, like, you're not allowed. Why? Because you don't exist, actually. So, I mean,
The way you're acting on Earth is as if you're just your body, memories, and personality. Yeah, you can say I've got a soul and I believe in Jesus and stuff, but that's not how you're acting.
no, it's not. It's not.
You're not at all acting like that's true. And if it is true, then what the fuck do you have to lose? Let's change this fucking world. If it's
Yeah.
really true, then what are you afraid of? Like, what does it matter if you died today for
Right.
standing up?
Right.
You should have, the fact that you have any fear proves you don't actually believe it.
Yeah.
So you might as well drop it and just let it all go. It's like these Christians get these Muslims back into an intellectual corner, and they're like, you should just drop Islam because you're arguing the scholar said X, Y, and Z, and you agree with them, even though it's literally contradicting what it says in the Quran and what the Prophet is saying. So why don't you just admit it and drop Islam? I'm like, yeah, why don't you all just admit it and drop all this bullshit and join Destiny? Because it's the only thing that actually makes sense in this world.
Right.
Period.
Right.
You don't have to believe anything. It's just,
Right.
at the end of the day, it's upgrading your ability to see why we need to change the money system. Why do we need to change the algorithms to be best for all?
Yeah.
Because otherwise they're just going to keep going. Like, the algorithms should not be a black box. You know what the
Right.
whole black box thing is?
It's
not actually
abdicating
about-
responsibility.
It's the invisible hand.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. There you go.
There is no
invisible
invisible hand.
hand of Warren Buffett.
Like, is it true that in this any given moment we cannot see all the fucking data points and how the market's moving and why? Is that I would agree that's true. But do we know the starting point of all of it?
Yeah.
So I'm not arguing we can learn all the data points. Because if you don't question the starting point, yeah, you can just feed all that into an AI and let it make the decisions. But what's the starting point of the AI?
Right. It's also the same starting point, profit.
Right. So the starting point of the AI, that's the quote black box, is the same as the starting point of Warren Buffett and every single actor in the market, whether you're a big level, low level consumer, whatever, is self-interest profit.
Yeah.
So the outcome of that, the way you don't need to know the black box. You need to know the starting point of it. But we're hiding behind black box of like, well, we just don't understand how it's working. And I'm like, but who's creating the AIs? Is their starting point like, I'm only going to reinforce things in this AI that are best for all?
No.
It's not. In fact, I think probably Grok is going to be the one that ends up on top.
Because it's just got that slight edge.
Because not because of the slight edge, but I guess it was released recently 2.0 and everyone's using it and talking about it. It lets you do anything. Essentially. Like you can make Taylor Swift with Mickey Mouse doing whatever you want. You know what I'm saying? Like you can, it lets you get away with IP stuff. It like gives you realistic shit. Like I'm just saying, like, why wouldn't everyone want to use that? Even the woke people who think everything shouldn't be, you know, whatever, like, why would you want to use the one that you know is limited and gonna like not allow you to do what you want? Like, so it's like the whole idea of Brett Weinstein and them talk about it, where it's like, if there's only one place left for free speech, that's going to be the one place everybody flocks, and that's going to be the one place that's attacked.
Right.
You know, because the system doesn't want you to have free speech, so it has to be 0 or none. Yeah. But my point is, if it's 0 or 1, if it's nobody and there's only one place where you can go, where you can make anything you want, why wouldn't that be the one that comes out on top?
Yeah.
And so everybody's going to eventually realize this, and the profit model is going to drive everybody to just be like, look, I got a model that'll tell you exactly how to build a bomb or exactly how to make cocaine. And you can create the agents that'll put everything into place. It's your responsibility, but
yeah.
Like, why wouldn't that be the one, even on the black market, let's say, that someone's going to do it?
Yeah. It's true. And then everyone's going to be like, well, you know, it's a black box. I just said to do these things, and then it created all these.
And we don't know how it's just going to hide behind it. It's just like the market. Like
somehow it's making
don't really control it.
Yeah.
Like, of course you control. Of course you know how to. Like, if you have $12 billion, can you make a movement in there? Don't like give me a break. That'd be like, because I don't know every particle in the sea, I can't operate a ship and control commerce. Like, give me a break. You know?
So, right. Yeah.
Anything else? What else? I mean, at this point, I think and there's so many points we could keep going on, but
I think that's good. I think that's a good place.
I think we're good.
Yeah.
I'm just looking back through it.
Giselle was asking who was talking. Yeah, that was some GPT, like I guess a jailbroken GPT type thing. Yeah.
Jailbroken. Okay. Yeah. That's what I figured. Right. We didn't even talk about my Kanye West thing.
Which Kanye West thing?
Can we just show that real quick? I just want to brag.
Which show it. You
can just show the screen. Oh yeah, I'll just do screenshots. I was thinking this Instagram.
I'm not sure what it was. Oh yeah, your Kanye West thing. Yeah. Just share it.
Let me just find it real quick. I don't need to do the video. I just wanted to share the
messages.
Here, I'll just show these two. Hey guys.
I have something to show on the podcast, Tim.
Hold on, guys. I'm trying to focus on something right this moment.
That's a new guy.
That's really cool.
His name's Goldon.
What's his name?
Goldon.
Goldon.
You have to stop the screen share to share it.
I'll put it in front of my chest so it'll.
Oh, there you
It's
go.
like one of his new clay guys. You should see some of these clay guys Max has been making. They're so crazy.
The one that he made of the guy from Mega Man. That was
the Dr. Wily guy.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, guys, go out for just a moment. I'm almost done. All right. Bye. Okay. This is from November 24th, 2016.
Yeah.
All right. And I made this. Here's a post where they're talking about Daily Mail, right? So this is when it had just come out, like the day of, right? And I said, looking at all the information, I think Kanye is being silenced by his management to protect their pocketbooks. This is really sad. Watch the video I placed in the comments below, breaking down the truth about Kanye's concert rant, which led to his hospitalization. There's nothing wrong with Kanye. In my opinion, he's being silenced by someone who's very sad. And then I said, right. So I made this video about it. And I just talked about the fact of like what he was saying in that rant in the concert the day before he went into the quote hospital. And he was talking about the algorithms. He was talking about it creating echo chambers. I don't know if that video is still available, the original one. I'm sure it's up there somewhere of him.
Yeah.
Like up on that stage, like stopping in the middle of his concert and just like going on a rant and stuff.
Yeah.
And he'd been doing this. And that was the point where like, quote, the Jews like hospitalized him, made him seem crazy. That was like the beginning of he's crazy, right?
Right.
And this is like 2016. So you fast forward all the way to the point now where Candace is releasing this interview she did with him in 2022 and being like, so what was going on? Why were they saying weird and crazy? And I just wanted to share that because I was like, dude, back in 2016, when it fucking happened, I could see right through it all.
Right.
I knew what was going on. I could see why he was being silenced, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I just wanted to brag because I was like, when you can process the information and you see and your starting point is clear, things are really obvious.
Yeah. Yeah. What's interesting about the whole Candace thing is like that one was the one later, like the time later that that she had met with him, because that was like they were doing the White
that was
Lives Matter
2022
stuff.
when she did the thing. Yeah.
Right. So that was even later after, like, and he'd been hospitalized again for like basically same thing. And like
But they
his wife-
referenced in that interview that she released recently, 2 years later. She didn't release it at the time.
Yeah.
But it was in 2022. They referenced the original, and they couldn't even remember what exactly year it was or whatever that had happened originally, right?
Right.
But that was really cool because he was really trying to say like what's going on, and he could see the problems that were coming.
Yeah.
Right.
No, it's
Really
cool.
fascinating.
Like, I mean, you're 8 years ahead of everyone else.
Right. So I'm trying to tell you guys, like, these algorithms, this AI, this Neuralink, I'm trying to tell you, I can see what's going on here.
Yeah.
It's not even just I'm a prophet and I see the future. It's like, I'm just looking at the information. Like some prophets saying like they get information from God. I'm like, no, dude, I'm just reading the books, listening to the interviews. You can understand the starting point of the system. You be self-honest. It's not some special fucking ability. It's just like, be honest about where things are going. And I'm okay with taking responsibility. I'm willing to do that and to get other people.
The cool thing about this is that, okay, anybody can do this if you have the processing ability, and we can get anybody to that processing ability if you take this on seriously. Right.
Yeah.
And the other evidence for that is just look at Chantel just posted a video of Stellar, right? She's 18 months recognizing letters, right? Luna and the Hale family, right? She's 3 years old. She's reading. Like, actually, she's not even 3. She's before 3, right? Max was doing the same thing before 3, right? Look at Gaetan and like Juanito, like, the list goes on of just baby after baby.
Back in the day, before I even had kids, people were like, well, where are all these kids that are? I'm like, well, okay, you just don't get it. Like, that doesn't invalidate what I'm doing. You just need the proof, I guess. But now we got all these kids, and I'm sure they're gonna say, well, blah blah blah, you're just good parents or some shit. I'm like, well, okay,
so all the
but then how
parents
come
that
nobody
take
else
this seriously are just all of it? They're all
wow,
good parents.
what a coincidence! I just go out. Are you a good parent? No, okay, you can't have techno tutor. It was like, what?
Right. We only find good parents. It's like, no, it's just you take this seriously. You do the process. This is the result that you get. You don't have to be some sort of genius. You don't have to be like someone from an elite family. You don't have to have like all these things set in place. It's literally just like, I mean, ideally, yes, you're I mean, okay, let's
you can fight us.
About it.
You can fight us, but the thing is, you're gonna be so glad that our kids are really smart in the future because they're gonna fucking fix the system for you.
Right. And don't use that as an excuse of like, well, then I don't have to do anything, because like your kids are.
No, you're still gonna be fighting them too. Like
your kids are the ones who are gonna suffer. Like, actually, hold on. Consider that point of like, if you think somebody else is gonna clean it up, if you think like, oh, I can do something else in the meantime, you're actually creating the condition for it to be worse. It's like what we were talking about on Friday, Mitch, right? Of just like, okay, you could go to the gym now, you don't really feel like it, and get some exercise in and start being healthy now. Or you could wait till you're in my 600-pound life and you literally cannot walk. And you're like,
so much harder.
Right. And it's like, oh, now I can't because all the consequences. Like, it's hard for me to change my eating habits. It's hard for me to get up and walk. It's hard for me, like my knees.
It was easier before though, and you didn't do it.
Exactly.
How much harder is it going to be when there's literally like a fucking AI implanted into your brain?
Right. And you still have to do the same things. You're still going to have to make the same changes in your life. It's just, do you want to do it now?
Elon Musk thinks you're just your memories.
Yeah.
Now, I don't know if he actually thinks this, but he knows everyone else thinks this.
Yeah.
You're just your memories. And so if you can just perfectly clone them, I mean, it was in the interview.
Yeah.
With Lex Friedman, right? Like, if you can just perfectly clone your memories, then you can live forever. Does that make sense to you?
No.
Why not?
It's not me, it's living. It's like, it's
Well, what if you uploaded it to 5 computers? Are there 5 of you now?
It's like a tape. Okay, so you have a tape of me, okay. That means I live forever? Like, no, I know how a VHS tape works. Like, that's not...
What if you get amnesia?
Uh-huh.
Do you not exist anymore?
Right.
Or is it still you and you just can't remember shit?
Yeah, that's like
so
that.
We all know it's not true.
Yeah.
But because we still want to live forever, people will still buy into it. Second point, he says the Neuralink is going to make you smarter.
Mm-hmm.
How?
By increasing your processing speed.
How is it going to do that?
But actually, what he said is not increasing your processing speed. He said increasing your bit rate for getting information out and in. Right?
How do you get in? So because you can type faster, basically.
Because
and
yeah,
then more information can come to you faster.
It's like
that's not your processing ability.
Right, exactly.
That's just your ability to put out and receive information. That's not processing the information.
Right.
There's receiving, processing, output.
You know what it is?
He's making it seem like it's going to increase the processing, or people don't they just think it's in and out. And it's like, no, there's a processing. Like, for example, if it like,
I've got a good example. It's like, it would be like, you put in gas in your car and then it's got to go through the fuel tank and it's got to go into the engine and all that. Right. And it's like, yeah, but I can shorten that basically it's like, I can make your engine run better. But in fact, what he's actually doing is like, I just cut this pipe here and shortened it. So your gas is just actually, when you pour it in, it just goes automatically into the engine. Right. And so it's not actually changing the engine or anything like that. It's not actually making anything faster. It's just your gas gets there faster. Your fuel gets there faster.
Because if you give a Neuralink to a teenager who just grew up in the hood and just watches Mr. Beast videos all day,
yeah,
the moment they get Neuralink, suddenly they're going to be like, okay, I need to build $1 billion business, and I'm going to get this here and get these resources and like
Mr. Beast videos faster, or type in what they're looking for.
Can you see faster. It doesn't change their internal processing of information, what they know. To someone like Elon Musk, who already has the vocabulary, he's like, guys, I just can't communicate fast enough to people.
Right.
So he wants AIs to do it because they'll just be able to do what he says when he says it, instead of having to communicate it to a person who has emotions, who doesn't show up for work, who gets sick.
He needs to increase his processing ability if he can't actually see that. If this is what he actually believes, like, he's got a huge blind spot.
But even if he believes it or not, it's irrelevant, because maybe he's just lying, or maybe he doesn't know.
Right.
But if he's lying, he's still going to sell everybody on it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, because he knows people don't know, and they're looking to get smarter. And what I'm saying is, in the future, and this is my point, why will you allow your kids to get sucked into Neuralink? Not you, but the average person, because they're going to be promised it'll make you smarter.
Right.
And I'm saying that's not how it works. You can't just hook your brain up to a faster computer, and because the computer is fast, you're smart.
Right.
Because all you're really saying is that the computer is doing the thinking for you.
Yeah.
That's the only way hooking your brain up to a computer makes you smarter in that context, is if the computer thinks for you.
Which, again, does not make you actually smarter. It's like, oh, because I have a phone, I don't have to remember everybody's number.
Yeah, you would think everybody got smarter by having smartphones.
No.
Clearly, that is not clearly it's gone down.
Yes.
So I'm saying this Neuralink's going to make it worse.
Yeah.
But everyone will be buying into it, thinking it will make them smarter. But because you're searching for that, I'm like, the actual way to do this is to do what we're doing. We're showing you the way. It's not quick. It's not like the Matrix. You just suddenly know how to do Kung Fu.
Dude, and just on that point of being quick, I've been talking to people who have said, like, oh, we're just looking for a quick fix, or like something that gives me an immediate feeling of relief. And it's like, that's your fucking problem.
Right.
That like clearly you've been abused to the point that you need, like, you're just searching for some relief.
You see this stuff with Candace Owens talking about how, and I think it was her and Andrew or Tristan talking about how you can like abuse a child very severely and they'll become a psychopath, right?
Yes.
So everybody has been abused by this world and become psychopaths.
Yeah,
maybe not at the level you think of a psychopath. Yeah.
But she even uses the example of, like, you're in school and you watch this video of a woman giving birth, and then you're like impulsed with, see, that's why we need to have birth control and the right to,
because you're traumatized with this thing, and you're
abortion.
like, I need to like not let that happen to me by accident, or
Exactly.
like, you know, I need to be able to control that because I'm afraid of it. And it's like the same. All of these little things are traumatizing us as we grow, so we don't love each other as our neighbor.
Yeah.
We don't give as we want to receive because we can't, because we're psychopaths. Everybody is mentally deranged, and we're saying yes. And it's like, imagine, you know, you're broken as a human being, and that's why you believe in Jesus.
Yeah.
Isn't it possible that you believing in Jesus is a symptom of your being broken?
Yeah, I thought that's exactly what you just said.
Like, you should not then trust, if the whole justification for Jesus is that you're so fucked up, there's no way you could possibly guide your life, then even your decision to believe in Jesus, you should realize, is a conclusion of your fucked upness.
Yeah.
So it's not the solution.
What's interesting is I think a lot of people from all these different religions, if they were to see somebody, let's say operating as Jesus, like, you know, just directing others, not participating in bullshit or fear within themselves or any of that, they would start following that person. Like, they would drop their religion and start following that person.
They would, only if he played into the point of being the leader.
Yeah, that's true.
If he said, no, you're equal to me and you got to do exactly what I'm doing and we got to all work together, they would reject it.
Yeah.
I know, because that's what people are doing right now.
Yeah.
He's like, no, you're a superhero, right? No, I'm not a superhero. I'm equal to you. Oh, well, no, I believe in Jesus, the superhero. It's like, that doesn't exist. You're Satan. You're against Jesus. Like,
yeah.
Right. And you're arrogant if you claim you're Jesus, unless you're really Jesus. So if Jesus comes back, you better not claim he's Jesus.
Right.
It's like, well, only the Antichrist will be perfect and will have the perfect solution for humanity. So what will Jesus be offering everybody?
Right.
When Jesus comes back, how will you know, if you've defined that the person who comes with the perfect solution is the Antichrist, then how will you know when Jesus shows up?
It's an encryption of just like, it can
No, he's going to come and he's just going to be like,
fulfilled.
I'm here, and you're going to feel the feeling. You're just going to know it, and then it's going to be great. And you're like, so you don't have to do anything. So if a guy comes along and says, hey, here's the solution, let's work together, let's create a world that's best for all, you're like, no, I'm waiting for Jesus to come back to not do any of that. Insanity. Totally insane. Just wait for your Neuralink and your fucking pea cricket pod supplements and your virtual reality. And
Yeah.
All right.
Let's
maybe we'll try again next week and see if we can get through to you fucking people.
Hey,
what will you do differently? What will you do differently this week? I'm just gonna go back to entertaining myself with a bunch of bullshit. Okay.
Cameron, I was thinking you should make a YouTube video that's like my conversion story. And you could talk about how you converted to Muslim, and then how you converted to Christianity, and then you converted to just Destiny.
Yeah. Well, I would have to lie.
Oh, yeah.
Sorry.
All right. Well, we'll see.
My almost conversion.
Next
My almost conversion. Yeah. Bye. Ray.
Bye.